As we settle in for tonight's historical journey, let the gentle whispers of scientific discovery carry you through time. Picture yourself walking through the mist-covered streets of Victorian London, where the foundations of modern forensic science first took shape in gaslit laboratories and crowded police stations. The soft glow of oil lamps illuminates the careful work of early pioneers, their dedication. Before we delve deeper into this fascinating historical narrative, I invite you to join our growing community of history enthusiasts and peaceful learners. If you find yourself drifting peacefully into these historical tales, consider subscribing to our channel and gently tapping that like button. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the world. Feel free to share in the comments below, along with any historical topics you'd like us. The story of forensic science begins long before the modern era, in ancient civilizations where keen observers first noticed the unique patterns that make each human distinct. In 3rd century China, handprints and fingerprints were used to seal official documents and identify their authors, while in the Middle East, merchants recognized that every person's fingertips left different marks in the clay tablets used for transactions. As we drift through time, we come to 13th century China, where the medical examiner Song Ci wrote The Washing Away of Wrongs, the first known forensic science textbook. In its carefully detailed pages, he described methods for distinguishing drowning from strangulation and how to detect poisonings through careful observation, knowledge that would slowly spread across the Silk Road to influence European thinking centuries later. The gentle progression of scientific understanding continued through the Renaissance, where European physicians began conducting more systematic examinations of bodies to understand cause of death. In 1658, the Italian surgeon Paolo Zacchia published the groundbreaking Questions Medico-Legals, establishing the foundations of modern forensic medicine with his detailed observations and methodical approach. As oil lamps gave way to gaslight, and gaslight to electricity, the 19th century brought remarkable advances in forensic science. In 1813, Matthew Orfila, often called the father of toxicology, published his comprehensive work on detecting poisons, while in 1835, Henry Goddard became the first person to use physical analysis to solve a crime, connecting a bullet to a specific mold. The misty streets of Victorian London saw the emergence of perhaps the most iconic forensic technique, fingerprinting. In 1858, William James Herschel began using fingerprints to identify individuals in colonial India, while in 1892, Sir Francis Galton published his detailed classification system for fingerprint patterns, establishing their uniqueness and permanence. The dawn of the 20th century brought new revelations, as forensic science slowly embraced the power of chemistry and biology. In 1901, as we prepare to explore these developments in greater detail, let us pause to appreciate how each discovery built upon the last, like layers of sediment forming Let us now begin our detailed exploration of this fascinating history, as we drift through time to understand how the art and science of forensic investigation gradually evolved into the sophisticated discipline we know today. As we drift back through the mists of time to explore the earliest foundations of forensic science, we find ourselves in ancient civilizations where the first seeds of systematic criminal investigation were planted. In the quiet chambers of ancient Chinese courts, as far back as the 6th century BCE, investigators began documenting their observations of crime scenes, carefully noting the positions of objects. Picture the serene setting of ancient China, where medical examiner Song Si wrote his groundbreaking work, The Washing Away of Wrongs, in 1248 CE. In the soft lamplight of his study, he meticulously documented the first known instance of using forensic entomology, the study of insects to solve a murder case. A farmer had been found dead from apparent blade wounds, and Song Si noticed distinct fly patterns that helped identify the true murder weapon. Moving westward across the Silk Roads of time, we encounter the Roman civilization, where early legal scholars like Quintilian developed methods for questioning witnesses and examining physical evidence. In their marble-columned courtrooms, judges would carefully consider handwriting analysis and the reliability of witness testimony, laying the groundwork for modern forensic document examination. In medieval Europe, as autumn leaves drifted past monastery windows, medical practitioners slowly began developing more systematic approaches to examining bodies. They would carefully document wounds, noting their size, shape, and location, though their understanding was limited by the medical knowledge of the time. The gentle flow of progress continued through the Renaissance, where anatomists like Ambroise Paré began conducting more detailed post-mortem examinations in the 16th century. In his quiet laboratory, illuminated by candlelight, Paré would carefully document his findings, contributing to the foundations of modern forensic pathology. In the misty courts of 17th-century Scotland, we find Sir George Mackenzie, who wrote the first book specifically focusing on forensic medicine in the British Isles. His careful observations and methodical approach to examining evidence would influence investigators for generations to come. As we approach the 1700s, we see the gradual emergence of more scientific approaches to criminal investigation. In the peaceful countryside of Yorkshire, England, investigators began paying closer attention to tool marks and footprints, though they didn't yet have systematic ways to record and compare them. Throughout these early centuries, traditional methods of investigation often relied on superstition and questionable practices like trial by ordeal. Yet beneath these practices, we can observe the slow, steady development of more rational, evidence-based approaches. Investigators began to understand the importance of preserving crime scenes, documenting evidence, and maintaining chain of custody, though these concepts wouldn't be formally defined until much. As the 18th century drew to a close, the stage was set for the remarkable developments that would follow. The careful observations and methodical approaches developed during these early centuries would provide the foundation for the scientific breakthroughs that would revolutionize forensic science in the centuries to come. As we drift back through the mists of time to explore ancient and medieval forensic practices, we find ourselves in civilizations that, while lacking modern technology, showed remarkable ingenuity in their pursuit of justice and truth. In ancient China, as early as 1248 CE, the detailed manual Washing Away of Wrongs by Song Ci described methods for in the warm Mediterranean climate of ancient Rome. Early forensic practitioners developed methods to examine wounds on victims of violence. The physician Galen, working in the 2nd century CE, meticulously documented different types of injuries and their likely causes, his writings preserved on delicate scrolls in quiet libraries. Roman investigators would carefully observe the position of fallen bodies, the pattern of blood drops on stone floors, and the nature of weapons found at crime scenes. Medieval Arabic scholars made significant contributions to forensic medicine. In the bustling markets and narrow streets of Baghdad, physicians like Ibn Sina, known as Avicenna in the West, wrote extensively about the examination of injuries, the timing of death, and the effects of various poisons. His Canon of Medicine, written in the early throughout medieval Europe, as towns grew and legal systems developed, rudimentary forensic practices emerged. In the cool stone chambers of monastery hospitals, monks with medical knowledge would sometimes be called upon to examine suspicious deaths. They would note the color and smell of wounds, the presence of unusual substances, and the condition of the deceased's clothing and belongings. The practice of examining weapons in relation to wounds began to develop during this period. In the torchlit halls of medieval courts, judges would compare the size and shape of blade marks to suspected weapons, developing early principles of tool mark analysis. The subtle variations in wound patterns and weapon characteristics were carefully documented in court records, written in flowing script on parchment pages. In medieval England, the office of the coroner was established in 1194, marking an important step in the formalization of death investigation. These early coroners would travel from village to village, their horses' hooves echoing on packed earth roads, as they examined suspicious deaths and gathered testimony from witnesses. They would note environmental conditions, the position of objects at the scene, and any signs of struggle or violence. The medieval period also saw the development of basic toxicology. In the quiet herb gardens of monasteries, knowledge about poisonous plants and their effects was carefully cultivated and documented. Observers noted the distinctive signs of various poisons, from the bitter almond smell of cyanide to the gradual weakening caused by arsenic. Though their methods, these ancient and medieval practices, while far removed from modern forensic science, laid important groundwork for future developments. Their careful observation of physical evidence, documentation of findings, and systematic approach to investigation would eventually evolve into the more sophisticated techniques of later centuries. As scientific thinking began to flourish in the Age of Enlightenment, a new approach to understanding crime emerged, one that would gradually transform the nature of criminal investigations. In the quiet halls of European universities and the lamplit studies of curious minds, scholars began applying rational thought and methodical observation to the puzzle of solving crimes. In the late 1700s, the gentle rustling of papers could be heard in the office of Giovanni Morgagni, an Italian anatomist who meticulously documented his forensic findings. His careful observations of bodies laid the groundwork for modern forensic pathology, as he quietly noted the subtle differences between natural and unnatural deaths. The soft scratch of his quill pen against parchment would echo through history, inspiring. The dawn of the 1800s brought with it the soothing precision of chemistry, as Matthew Orfila, working in his peaceful laboratory in Paris, carefully catalogued the effects of various poisons. The subtle bubbling of solutions and the careful measuring of substances became a daily rhythm as he developed systematic approaches to detecting toxic substances in the body. In the quiet countryside of Scotland, Dr. Robert Christison continued Orfila's work, carefully studying the effects of various substances on living tissues. The gentle clicking of glass vials and the soft whisper of pages turning accompanied his groundbreaking research, which would help courts better understand evidence in poisoning cases. His careful attention to detail and patient documentation, the soft glow of oil lamps illuminated the work of James Marsh, who in 1836 developed his eponymous test for detecting arsenic, the favorite poison of the era. In his laboratory at the Royal Arsenal in Woolwich, England, the subtle changes in chemical solutions would reveal the presence of deadly substances, bringing justice to countless cases that might otherwise have remained. As these scientific methods slowly took root, they began to transform the nature of criminal investigations. The old ways of relying solely on witness testimony and circumstantial evidence gradually gave way to more systematic approaches. In courtrooms across Europe, judges and juries began to hear new kinds of evidence, presented with the quiet authority of scientific observation. The careful preservation of crime scene evidence became increasingly important during this period. Investigators learned to move with deliberate care through crime scenes, noting the position of objects, collecting samples, and documenting their observations with scientific precision. The soft scratching of pencils on notepads replaced the hasty conclusions of earlier times. This early period of scientific reasoning in crime solving laid the essential foundation for all that would follow. Like a slowly flowing river carving its path through stone, these methodical approaches would gradually reshape the landscape of criminal investigation. The patient work of these early pioneers, conducted in quiet laboratories and study rooms, would eventually, as scientific reasoning began to take hold in criminal investigations, the late 18th and early 19th centuries saw the first systematic documentation of forensic methodologies. In the quiet halls of European universities and courtrooms, scholars and investigators were carefully recording their observations and techniques, creating the foundation for modern forensics. In 1784, in the peaceful Scottish city of Edinburgh, James Tytler published the first book specifically devoted to forensic medicine, a system of medical jurisprudence. The pages of this groundbreaking work rustled with detailed descriptions of how medical knowledge could be applied to legal questions, from examining wounds to understanding decomposition. The careful scratching of quill pens on parchment. Moving into the early 1800s, the soft footsteps of Matthew Orfila echoed through the corridors of French academia. Orfila, working methodically in his laboratory, developed the first systematic approach to toxicology. His 1814 treatise, Traité des Poisons, documented precise methods for detecting poisons in the human body. In the gathering dusk of Victorian London, medical examiner Thomas Wackley began publishing The Lancet in 1823. This journal, still quietly influential today, provided a forum for sharing forensic methodologies among medical practitioners. The subtle rustle of its pages carried detailed accounts of post-mortem examination. The methodical work of Henry Goddard in 1835 brought a new dimension to forensic investigation. In the soft lamplight of his study, Goddard carefully documented how bullet molds left unique markings on lead bullets, becoming the first to use physical analysis to link ammunition to a specific weapon. His patient observations laid the groundwork for. As gentle autumn rains fell on Paris in 1863, Alexander Lacassagne established one of the first formal criminological laboratories. Within its peaceful walls, He documented systematic approaches to analyzing blood spatter patterns and bullet wounds. The scratch of his pen recorded detailed protocols that would guide future investigators. The warm summer of 1879 saw Alphonse Berthelin, working in the quiet precision of his Paris office, develop the first scientific system of criminal identification. His anthropometric measurements, carefully documented body measurements and facial features, provided a standardized way to record and identify individuals. These early documented methodologies, like tributaries flowing into a river, gradually merged into a more comprehensive approach to forensic investigation. Each careful observation, each detailed protocol, each methodical analysis added to the growing body of forensic knowledge. The gentle accumulation of As we drift into the early 19th century, we find ourselves at a remarkable turning point in the history of forensic science. The gentle dawn of the 1800s brought with it a new age of scientific enlightenment, where careful observation and methodical analysis began to replace superstition and conjecture in the realm of criminal investigation. In the peaceful French countryside of 1804, Mathieu Orfila, often called the father of modern toxicology, was beginning his groundbreaking work. In his quiet laboratory, illuminated by soft candlelight, he meticulously developed tests to detect poisonous substances in human tissue. The subtle bubbling of his experiments and the careful scratching of his quill pen as he documented his findings would forever change. The streets of London in the 1810s witnessed the establishment of the first organized police force, the Bow Street Runners, who began implementing early forensic techniques in their investigations. The measured footsteps of these pioneers echoed through cobblestone streets as they carefully preserved crime scenes and collected evidence, practices that were revolutionary for their time. In 1813, in a quiet corner of Spain, Mathieu Orfila published his seminal work, Traité des Poisons, which detailed the systematic approach to detecting poisons in the human body. The gentle rustle of pages turning in medical schools across Europe marked the beginning of forensic toxicology as a formal discipline. The soft glow of oil lamps illuminated the work of James Marsh in 1836 as he developed his test for detecting arsenic, a breakthrough that would help solve countless poisoning cases. The subtle chemical reactions in his laboratory would become a cornerstone of forensic analysis, providing investigators with reliable scientific methods for the first time. During these transformative decades, the careful examination of physical evidence became increasingly important. In the peaceful countryside of Scotland, medical examiners began conducting more thorough post-mortem examinations, their gentle hands carefully documenting wounds and determining causes of death with unprecedented precision. The whispered conversations in European universities gradually turned to the importance of preserving crime scenes, as investigators realized that every fragment of evidence told its own story. The soft brush of early photography began capturing crime scenes, preserving them for careful study and analysis. In the quiet halls of justice, courts began accepting scientific evidence with growing frequency. The measured voices of expert witnesses explaining chemical tests and medical findings became a common sound in courtrooms across Europe and America. As we approach the middle of the century, we see the gradual emergence of specialized fields within forensic science. The careful study of blood patterns, the preservation of footprints, and the analysis of trace evidence all began to take shape during this period. Each development built upon the last, like gentle waves washing upon a shore, gradually reshaping. This period laid the foundation for all modern forensic practices, establishing the principle that science and careful observation could illuminate the darkest mysteries of criminal behavior. As we rest here in contemplation of these developments, we can appreciate how each careful step forward helped create the systematic approach to forensic science that would continue to evolve in the decades to come. As scientific methods in crime investigation continued to advance through the 19th century, a new and crucial field emerged that would forever change the landscape of forensic science toxicology. In the quiet laboratories and medical offices of Europe, dedicated physicians and chemists began developing systematic ways to detect poison. In the early 1800s, arsenic was known as the inheritance powder, a tragically common tool for murder that left few obvious traces. The gentle whisper of scientific progress brought forth Matthew Orfila, a Spanish physician working in Paris, who would become known as the father of toxicology. The soft rustling of pages in laboratories across Europe marked the steady advancement of chemical detection methods. In 1836, James Marsh, an English chemist, developed what became known as the Marsh test, a reliable method for detecting arsenic in human tissue. The careful bubbling of hydrogen gas through solutions, the subtle precipitation. As autumn leaves fell in 1840, Marie Lafarge stood trial in France for allegedly poisoning her husband with arsenic. The case drew the careful attention of Orfila, who refined the Marsh test to provide more accurate results. The quiet precision of his work helped establish chemical testing as a cornerstone of forensic investigation. Through the measured passage of time, other scientists contributed their own careful observations. Hugo Reinsch developed his test for arsenic in 1841, adding another layer to the growing foundation of forensic toxicology. The soft scratching of pen on paper recorded countless experiments as researchers documented the. In medical schools and universities, students began learning these new techniques, their quiet concentration broken only by the subtle clink of glass beakers and the soft murmur of scientific discussion. The knowledge spread slowly but steadily, like ripples in a still pond, reaching police. By the 1850s, forensic toxicology had become an established science, with laboratories equipped to test for a wide range of poisons. The gentle whir of centrifuges and the careful measuring of reagents became familiar sounds in these spaces dedicated to uncovering truth through science. Each careful step forward in toxicological understanding helped illuminate. The emergence of toxicology brought a new level of precision to death investigations, allowing investigators to peer beyond surface appearances and reveal hidden causes of death. Like a slowly opening flower, this field continued to bloom throughout the 19th century, its methods becoming more refined and its applications more widespread. As forensic science continued to evolve in the late 19th century, investigators began paying closer attention to the detailed examination of firearms and bullets in criminal cases. The development of ballistics analysis emerged gradually, like a slowly unfurling scroll of. In 1835, Henry Goddard made one of the first documented uses of bullet comparison when he noticed a distinctive flaw in a bullet recovered from a murder victim. With patient attention to detail, he traced this imperfection to a bullet mold used by the suspect. Calvin Goddard, no relation to Henry, would later become known as the father of modern ballistics analysis in the early 20th century. His methodical approach introduced the comparison microscope to forensic science in 1925, allowing investigators to study two bullets side by side with unprecedented. The watershed moment for ballistics analysis came with the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. In the quiet aftermath of this notorious crime, Goddard's careful examination of bullet evidence helped identify the weapons used, demonstrating the. Throughout the 1930s and 1940s, the field of ballistics analysis continued to grow steadily, like a river gaining tributaries. Scientists developed more sophisticated methods for comparing ammunition components, studying powder residues, and determining firing distances. The creation The introduction of the scanning electron microscope in the 1960s brought new clarity to ballistics analysis. This technology allowed investigators to examine microscopic details of bullet surfaces and gunshot residue with unprecedented precision, revealing evidence that had previously remained hidden. As techniques refined over time, ballistics analysis expanded to include the study of gunshot residue patterns, bullet trajectory analysis, and the chemical composition of ammunition components. Each development added another layer to investigators' understanding. This methodical development of ballistics analysis represented a significant advancement in forensic science, providing investigators with reliable scientific methods to connect firearms to specific crimes. The careful, systematic approach to studying firearms evidence continues to evolve today. As forensic science continued to evolve in the mid-19th century, the microscope emerged as a revolutionary tool that would forever change how evidence was examined and analyzed. The gentle art of microscopy, which had its origins in the careful observation. In 1850, Belgian scientist Jean Servais Stas made a remarkable breakthrough when he became one of the first to use microscopy to examine trace evidence in a criminal case. Working in his quietly lit laboratory, surrounded by the soft clicking of brass microscope adjustments, Stas carefully studied crystalline structures of various poisons, developing. The peaceful dedication of Dr. Herman Welker in 1857 led to another significant advancement, as he meticulously documented the unique characteristics of human hair under microscopic examination. In his tranquil study, illuminated by soft, natural light filtering through tall windows, Welker observed and recorded the subtle variations. During the 1860s, the soothing precision of microscopic analysis found its way into courtrooms across Europe. Dr. Ludwig Teichmann's careful development of the hemochromogen crystal test in 1853 allowed investigators to definitively identify blood samples, bringing a new level of scientific certainty to criminal investigations. The quiet laboratories where these tests were conducted became peaceful sanctuaries of scientific discovery. Hans Gross, writing in his influential 1893 handbook, Criminal Investigation, devoted considerable attention to the gentle art of microscopic examination. He described in flowing prose how investigators should carefully preserve trace evidence, tiny fibers, dust particles, and microscopic residues that could reveal crucial details about a crime when examined under the revealing lens of a microscope. The dawn of the 20th century brought with it increasingly sophisticated applications of microscopy in forensic science. Edmond Locard, working in his serene laboratory in Lyon, France, established what would become known as Locard's exchange principle, the fundamental observation that every contact leaves a trace. His careful microscopic examinations of dust particles and other minute evidence helped solve numerous cases while establishing the foundations of modern trace evidence analysis. In these early years, forensic microscopists would spend peaceful hours examining the delicate patterns of textile fibers, the subtle variations in paper structure, and the unique characteristics of soil samples. Their patient work in quiet laboratories, accompanied only by the soft scratch of pencil on paper as they recorded their observations, helped build the systematic approach to evidence analysis. The gentle evolution of microscopic techniques continued steadily through the early 1900s as new methods for preparing and examining specimens were developed. The careful application of polarized light microscopy, phase contrast microscopy, and other specialized techniques expanded the capabilities of forensic scientists, allowing them to reveal ever more subtle details in the evidence they examined. This methodical progression of scientific capability would eventually lead to even more sophisticated tools of analysis, but as microscopy opened new frontiers in forensic science, another revolutionary development was quietly taking shape: the systematic study and use of fingerprints for identification. In the calm, methodical laboratories and offices of the mid-1800s, Scientists and investigators began to unlock the profound significance of these unique patterns that nature had imprinted on every human hand. In 1858, in the warm climate of colonial India, Sir William Herschel first began experimenting with fingerprints as a means of identifying local workers and pensioners. The gentle press of fingertips against paper, leaving behind their distinctive whorls and loops, would soon transform criminal investigation forever. Herschel noticed how these patterns remained unchanged over the years, as reliable as the stars his astronomer father had studied in the night sky. Dr. Henry Faulds, working in Japan during the 1870s, made another crucial observation while examining ancient pottery. His careful eyes noticed the preserved fingerprints of long-ago craftsmen pressed into the clay. This discovery led him to conduct detailed studies of fingerprint patterns, methodically collecting and comparing hundreds of samples. In 1880, he published his findings in the scientific journal Nature, suggesting fingerprints. The quiet halls of British science were soon stirred by Sir Francis Galton, who brought his patient, mathematical mind to the study of fingerprints. Through the 1880s, he meticulously analyzed thousands of prints, developing the first systematic method for classifying their patterns. His careful work showed that no two fingerprints were alike, even among identical twins, and that these patterns remained unchanged throughout a person's life. In the closing years of the century, Sir Edward Richard Henry developed a practical classification system that would become the foundation of modern fingerprint identification. Working in the Bengal Police Department, he refined and simplified existing methods, creating a system so elegant and effective that it was adopted by Scotland Yard in 1901 and soon spread throughout the world. The first criminal case solved using fingerprint evidence came in 1892 in Argentina. Inspector Eduardo Alvarez carefully examined a bloody fingerprint left at a crime scene, matching it to a mother who had murdered her two sons. The gentle yet undeniable precision of fingerprint identification had begun to change the course of justice. In police stations and laboratories across the world, investigators began learning the art of collecting and analyzing these delicate impressions. They used fine powders and soft brushes to reveal latent prints, carefully photographing and preserving them as evidence. The process required patience and attention to detail, qualities that would become hallmarks of forensic science. As the 19th century drew to a close, fingerprint identification had evolved from a curious observation to a powerful forensic tool. The unique patterns that had always been present on human hands were now recognized as nature's own system of identification, more reliable than any artificial method. This quiet revolution in criminal investigation would continue to evolve, laying the groundwork for the modern science of. As fingerprints became increasingly recognized as a reliable means of identification in the late 19th century, the need for an organized system to classify and catalog them grew ever more pressing. In the quiet halls of colonial India, a methodical police officer named Sir Edward Henry would spend countless hours studying the intricate patterns that nature had. In 1897, after years of careful observation and documentation, Henry introduced his classification system, which divided fingerprints into 5 basic pattern types: arches, tented arches, loops, whorls, and composites. Each evening, he would meticulously examine prints under lamplight, noting how the ridges formed distinctive patterns that could be systematically categorized and filed. The gentle rustling of. Before Henry's system, Juan Vucetich, working in Argentina, had developed his own classification method in 1891. In the warm South American climate, Vucetich would spend his days organizing prints into 4 basic pattern types he called arches: internal loops, external loops, and whorls. His system, though less widely adopted internationally, proved highly effective in Argentina and much of South America. Meanwhile, in Britain, Sir Francis Galton had been working on his own classification system since the 1880s. His careful studies led to the identification of specific features in fingerprints that became known as Galton points. The minute details where ridge lines end, split, or join together. These points would become fundamental to modern fingerprints. The various classification systems shared a common thread. They all sought to create order from the seemingly endless variety of patterns nature had created. In police departments and forensic offices across the world, careful technicians would spend their days organizing growing collections of prints, filing them away in systems that would allow quick retrieval when needed for comparison. As the new century approached, these classification systems began to spread globally, carried by the gentle currents of scientific exchange. In dimly lit offices from London to Buenos Aires, from Calcutta to New York, fingerprint experts would carefully study the methods, learning to recognize the subtle differences between pattern types. The impact of these early classification systems cannot be overstated. They transformed fingerprint identification from a fascinating curiosity into a practical tool for law enforcement. In the quiet hours of the morning, police officers could now search through organized files of prints, methodically comparing ridge patterns to solve cases that might otherwise have remained. The systems continued to evolve and improve, each refinement making the process more efficient and reliable. The soft whisper of turning pages in fingerprint bureaus around the world became a constant reminder of how far the science had come and how much further it would go. These classification systems laid the foundation for modern biometric identification, their influence extending far beyond their original scope. As we continue our gentle exploration of fingerprint history, let us turn our attention to two remarkable pioneers whose work in the late 19th century would forever change the course of forensic science. In the quiet colonial offices of British India, William Herschel made a fascinating discovery that would ripple through. In 1858, in the tranquil district of Hooghly, Herschel began experimenting with fingerprints as a means of preventing forgery. He started by requesting local businessman Rajiadhar Khan to press his hand print on the back of a contract. This simple act marked the beginning of a systematic collection of fingerprints that would span over 2 decades. Herschel methodically. Meanwhile, across the vast expanse of Asia, in Japan, Scottish Dr. Henry Faulds was making his own remarkable observations. While working at the Tsukuji Hospital in Tokyo in 1879, Faulds noticed ancient pottery bearing distinct fingerprint impressions. This chance observation led him to conduct extensive. Faulds made several groundbreaking discoveries during his time in Japan. He observed that fingerprints remained constant throughout an individual's life, and that they could be classified into distinct pattern types. More significantly, he recognized their potential for solving crimes. In 1880, Faulds successfully used fingerprints. The paths of these two pioneers would intersect in an unexpected way. In 1880, Faulds wrote to Charles Darwin about his findings, hoping to gather support for his research. Darwin, feeling too ill to respond directly, forwarded the letter to his cousin, Francis Galton. Both Herschel and Faulds published their findings independently. Herschel detailed his extensive collection of fingerprint records in The Origin of Fingerprinting in 1916, while Faulds published his groundbreaking article in Nature magazine in 1880, titled On the Skin Furrows of the Hand. Their work, though developed separately, complemented each other beautifully, laying crucial groundwork for the scientific understanding of the gentle persistence of these two men, working in different corners of Asia, demonstrated how careful observation and methodical research could unlock nature's secrets. Their discoveries would gradually transform from isolated experiments into fundamental principles of forensic science, creating ripples that would touch shores far beyond their own time and place. As we rest here in contemplation of their achievements, we can appreciate how their patient, detailed work helped build the foundation for modern criminal investigation methods. As the scientific foundations of fingerprint analysis became more established, law enforcement agencies around the world began the gradual process of implementing these revolutionary techniques into their daily investigative practices. The transition was gentle but persistent, like a slow-moving tide that would eventually transform criminal investigation forever. In 1901, Scotland Yard became one of the first police forces to establish a formal fingerprint bureau, creating a peaceful atmosphere of methodical organization where trained experts would carefully catalog and compare fingerprint records. The quiet rooms were filled with the soft rustling of paper files and the subtle clicking of measuring tools as officers learned this new craft. During these early years, fingerprint experts would spend hours in contemplative focus, examining the delicate whorls and loops under magnifying glasses in well-lit rooms. The process required tremendous patience and attention to detail, as each ridge and furrow needed to be carefully documented and classified according to the newly established systems. The New York State prison system began using fingerprinting in 1903, their filing cabinets gradually filling with carefully preserved print cards, each one representing a unique human story. The methodical sound of cabinet drawers opening and closing became a familiar rhythm in police stations and prison offices across America. In 1905, the U.S. Army began using fingerprints for identification, while the U.S. Navy followed suit in 1907, slowly building their own comprehensive databases. The gentle rustle of paper files being updated and organized became a daily occurrence in military offices, as service members' identities were documented with this new precision. By 1908, the Federal Bureau of Investigation had established its own identification division, beginning with a modest collection of 810 fingerprint cards. The division operated in quiet efficiency, with experts working at sturdy wooden desks, carefully comparing ridge patterns under the warm glow of desk lamps. The implementation process faced some initial resistance, as older officers occasionally expressed skepticism about this new technique. However, the mounting success stories gradually won over even the most doubtful minds. The soft murmur of conversation in police stations increasingly included discussions of fingerprint evidence and its growing reliability. One particularly significant moment came in 1911, when fingerprint evidence was used to secure a conviction in the United States for the first time. The case proceeded with careful deliberation, as experts explained the science behind the evidence to attentive jurors in hushed courtrooms. Throughout the 1920s, the practice continued to spread steadily through law enforcement agencies worldwide. Training programs were established, where experienced experts would patiently guide newcomers through the intricacies of classification and comparison. The quiet concentration of these learning sessions helped establish high standards of professionalism in the field. By 1924, the FBI's collection had grown to include more than 810,000 fingerprint cards, carefully stored in temperature-controlled rooms where the only sounds were the gentle movements of filing and retrieval. This systematic collection would prove invaluable in countless investigations, as officers could now search through records with unprecedented accuracy and reliability. The implementation phase marked a crucial transition from theoretical understanding to practical application, as fingerprint analysis became an indispensable tool in the daily work of law enforcement. Like a slowly flowing river carving its path through the landscape, this period shaped the future of forensic science, establishing practices and procedures that would endure for generations to come. As we drift deeper into the early years of the 20th century, forensic science underwent a profound transformation through groundbreaking developments in blood analysis. The quiet laboratories of dedicated scientists became the birthplace of techniques that would forever change criminal investigation. In 1901, Dr. Carl Landsteiner made a discovery that would prove invaluable to forensic science when he identified the ABO blood group system. Working in his peaceful Vienna laboratory, surrounded by microscopes and carefully labeled specimens, Landsteiner observed how different blood samples would either mix smoothly or clump together, leading him to recognize distinct blood types. This understanding would later allow investigators to exclude or include suspects based on blood evidence found at crime scenes. The gentle progress of blood analysis continued as Paul Uhlenhuth developed the precipitin test in 1901. In his methodical experiments, Uhlenhuth discovered that when animal blood was injected into rabbits, their immune systems produced specific antibodies that would react only with the blood of that species. This serological technique allowed investigators to definitively distinguish human blood from animal blood, solving a long-standing challenge in forensic analysis. Leon Lattes, working in the quiet solitude of his Italian laboratory in 1915, developed a method to determine blood groups from dried bloodstains. His technique involved carefully dissolving dried blood in saline solution and observing its reactions with known antibodies. The soft scratching of his pen on paper documented procedures that would become standard practice in forensic laboratories around the world. During these transformative years, forensic scientists began to understand that blood evidence could reveal far more than just its presence at a crime scene. The careful examination of blood spatter patterns emerged as a valuable investigative tool. Experts learned to read the silent stories told by the size, shape, and distribution of bloodstains, helping them reconstruct the events of violent crimes with increasing accuracy. The period between 1900 and 1920 also saw the development of more sensitive presumptive tests for blood. The luminol test, which causes blood to glow with a soft blue luminescence in darkness, began its early development during this era. Scientists discovered that even-minute traces of blood, invisible to the naked eye, could be revealed through chemical reactions. These advances in blood analysis occurred against the backdrop of broader social changes. The growing acceptance of scientific evidence in courtrooms meant that these new techniques gradually became important tools in the pursuit of justice. Investigators who had once relied primarily on witness testimonies and circumstantial evidence now had powerful scientific methods at their disposal. As we ease into the next phase of forensic science history, we can appreciate how these early blood analysis breakthroughs laid the foundation for even more sophisticated techniques to come. The quiet, methodical work of scientists in their laboratories during these 2 decades would echo through the centuries, influencing how we approach forensic investigation even today. Their dedication to understanding the stories that blood could tell would open new chapters in the evolving narrative of forensic science. As forensic science continued to evolve in the early 20th century, the understanding of blood typing emerged as a crucial development that would forever change the field. In 1901, Carl Landsteiner made a groundbreaking discovery at the University of Vienna, identifying what we now know as the ABO blood group system. Working in his quiet laboratory, surrounded by the gentle clicking of glass vials and the soft whisper of gas burners, Landsteiner carefully observed how different blood samples reacted with one another. Through his meticulous research, Landsteiner discovered that human blood could be categorized into distinct groups, which he initially labeled A, B, and C, later renamed O. This finding was expanded 2 years later when his colleagues Alfred von de Casello and Adriano Sturli identified the fourth blood type, AB. The soft scratching of pen on paper documented these observations that would soon revolutionize both medicine and forensic science. In the peaceful setting of his laboratory, Landsteiner noticed how blood serum from one person could cause the red blood cells of another to clump together, or agglutinate. This reaction occurred in distinct patterns, leading to the understanding that people have different blood types. The implications for forensic science were profound, as investigators could now determine whether blood found at a crime scene could have come from a particular suspect. By 1915, Léon Lattes, working in the serene halls of the Institute of Forensic Medicine in Turin, Italy, developed the first forensic application of blood typing. His method, known as the Lattes crust method, allowed investigators to determine blood groups from dried blood stains. The technique involved carefully dissolving dried blood in saline solution and observing the reaction with known antisera, all while working in the hushed atmosphere of the forensic laboratory. The 1920s and 1930s brought further refinements to blood typing techniques. Scientists discovered additional blood group systems, such as the MN system in 1927 and the rhesus factor in 1940. Each discovery added another layer of precision to forensic blood analysis, allowing investigators to narrow down potential suspects with greater accuracy. Throughout these decades, forensic scientists worked diligently in their laboratories, carefully documenting their findings and developing standardized procedures for blood typing analysis. The gentle hum of centrifuges and the methodical process of preparing slides became familiar sounds in forensic laboratories across the world. One particularly noteworthy case that demonstrated the value of blood typing in forensic science occurred in 1915, when a Berlin court accepted blood group evidence for the first time. The case involved a disputed paternity claim, and the blood type analysis helped exclude a falsely accused man. This quiet revolution in the courtroom set a precedent for the acceptance of scientific evidence in legal proceedings. As the century progressed, blood typing became increasingly sophisticated. Scientists discovered that blood groups could be determined not only from liquid blood, but also from other bodily fluids and tissues. This knowledge expanded the tools available to forensic investigators, allowing them to gather evidence from various sources at crime scenes, while working with the patient precision that characterized the field's growing professionalism. As forensic science continued to evolve in the early 20th century, investigators faced a persistent challenge, determining whether suspicious stains at crime scenes were actually blood. This led to the fascinating development of presumptive blood tests, which would become essential tools in forensic investigation. In 1904, German physician Ernst Cassel and chemist Otto Mayer discovered that hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying protein in blood, could catalyze the oxidation of certain chemical compounds, producing visible color changes. This principle would form the foundation for many presumptive blood tests that followed. Their work in their quiet laboratory, carefully mixing clear solutions that transformed into telling shades of blue and green, opened new possibilities for crime scene investigation. The most significant breakthrough came in 1937, when German chemist Walter Specht developed the luminol test. In the soft glow of his laboratory, Specht observed how certain chemicals, when mixed with blood, produced a gentle blue chemiluminescence visible in darkness. This ethereal blue light would become a powerful tool for detecting traces of blood that had been cleaned away or were otherwise invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, in the peaceful countryside of Switzerland, Fritz Fagel was perfecting another approach. His work led to the development of the Castle-Mayer test in the early 1900s, which used phenolphthalein to produce a distinctive pink color in the presence of hemoglobin. The test was simple yet elegant. A few drops of clear solution would transform to reveal hidden traces of blood. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, forensic scientists refined these techniques in laboratories across Europe and America. They worked methodically, testing different chemical combinations and concentrations, always seeking more sensitive and reliable methods. The leukocrystal violet test emerged during this period, offering investigators another tool that could produce deep purple stains when reacting with blood. These presumptive tests became invaluable in criminal investigations, though scientists understood their limitations. Like gentle whispers of evidence, they could suggest the presence of blood but couldn't definitively prove it. Each test had its own subtle characteristics. Some worked better on older stains, others on diluted samples, creating a complementary array of investigative tools. In the quiet halls of forensic laboratories, technicians carefully documented their findings, noting how different surfaces and environmental conditions affected test results. They learned that temperature, humidity, and the passage of time could all influence how blood traces responded to these chemical indicators. The development of these tests transformed crime scene investigation. Where once investigators relied solely on visual inspection, they now had chemical allies that could reveal hidden evidence. In dimly lit rooms and under the cover of darkness, luminol would cast its revealing glow, while other tests offered their colorful confirmations in the light of day. As we drift toward the latter half of the 20th century, these presumptive tests would continue to evolve, becoming more sensitive and specific. They formed an essential bridge between early forensic techniques and the sophisticated DNA analysis that would later revolutionize the field, each development building upon the careful, methodical work of those who came before. As the field of forensic science continued to evolve in the early to mid-20th century, the foundations of forensic serology began to take shape, building upon earlier discoveries in blood analysis and typing. This specialized branch of forensic science, focusing on the study of biological fluids, would become instrumental in solving countless criminal cases. In the peaceful laboratories of the 1930s, scientists worked methodically to develop new techniques for analyzing not just blood, but other bodily fluids that could be found at crime scenes. The gentle hum of centrifuges and the soft clink of glass test tubes became familiar sounds as researchers carefully examined samples under microscopes, seeking to understand the stories these silent witnesses could tell. Dr. Leon Lattes, working in his quiet laboratory in Turin, Italy, made significant contributions by refining methods for detecting and analyzing dried bloodstains. His careful attention to detail and patient approach helped establish protocols that would be used for decades to come. The subtle differences in how various biological materials responded to chemical tests became increasingly important in criminal investigation. Throughout the 1940s, forensic serologists developed more sophisticated techniques for distinguishing between human and animal blood, a crucial advancement that helped investigators narrow down their inquiries. The work was methodical and precise, requiring steady hands and careful observation, as scientists noted the subtle changes in color and texture that could reveal the origin of a bloodstain. In the calm atmosphere of post-war laboratories, researchers began exploring the potential of other bodily fluids in forensic investigation. The analysis of saliva, sweat, and other secretions gradually became standard practice, each offering new possibilities for linking suspects to crime scenes. The soft whisper of papers being filed and the gentle scratch of pencils. During the 1950s, The development of absorption inhibition testing brought new precision to blood grouping analysis. In the quiet corners of forensic laboratories, technicians carefully applied antisera to samples, watching patiently as reactions occurred that could reveal crucial information about the source of biology. The introduction of electrophoresis techniques in the late 1950s allowed for even more detailed analysis of proteins in biological samples. The steady hum of electrical equipment became a constant presence in laboratories as scientists separated and identified different protein markers, each potentially holding vital clues to help solve criminal cases. By the early 1960s, forensic serology had established itself as an essential component of criminal investigation. The careful documentation of chain of custody procedures and the standardization of testing methods created a framework that would support future developments in the field. The methodical work of these early serologists, conducted in hushed laboratories with unwavering attention to detail, laid the groundwork for the more advanced techniques that would follow. The gentle progression of forensic serology during this period reflected a growing understanding of the complexity of biological evidence. Each new discovery and refinement of technique added another layer to the foundation that would eventually support the revolutionary developments in DNA analysis that lay ahead. The patient, systematic approach of these pioneering scientists helped establish forensic serology as a reliable and respected discipline within the broader field of forensics. As the 1920s dawned, a quiet revolution was taking place in the world of criminal investigation. The growing understanding of scientific principles and their application to solving crimes led to the gradual establishment of dedicated crime laboratories. Like gentle ripples spreading across still water, this movement began in major cities and slowly expanded outward. In 1923, Los Angeles Police Department created one of the first American police crime laboratories, a modest facility that would grow to become a model for others. Within its walls, skilled technicians carefully examined evidence using microscopes, chemical tests, and photography equipment. The soft hum of scientific instruments and the methodical work of investigators became a daily rhythm in these early laboratories. The calm but steady progress continued as August Vollmer, often called the father of modern American police work, established a scientific crime detection laboratory at the Berkeley Police Department. Here, in quiet rooms filled with the subtle scent of chemical reagents, investigators began applying increasingly sophisticated techniques to analyze trace evidence, document examination, and firearms identification. During these transformative years, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Technical Laboratory was founded in 1932, initially occupying a single room. Like a seed-taking root, it grew steadily under the guidance of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. The gentle clicking of typewriters and careful notations of laboratory technicians filled the space as they documented their findings with meticulous attention to detail. Throughout the 1930s, more cities established their own crime laboratories, each contributing to the growing body of forensic knowledge. The Michigan State Police created their laboratory in 1931, while Chicago's Scientific Crime Detection Laboratory, established in 1929, became a center for innovation in forensic technique development. In these spaces, patient investigators examined evidence. The rise of crime laboratories brought with it standardization of procedures and the development of new analytical methods. Like artisans perfecting their craft, forensic scientists refine techniques for analyzing tool marks, comparing bullets, and examining questioned documents. The soft scratching of pencils on paper accompanied their careful measurements and observations. During this period, the sharing of knowledge between laboratories became increasingly important. Scientists would travel between facilities, exchanging techniques and insights in quiet conference rooms and over cups of coffee. This collaborative spirit helped establish best practices and standardized procedures that would form the foundation of modern forensic science. By 1940, crime laboratories had become an integral part of law enforcement, their workspaces filled with the gentle whirring of centrifuges, the careful measuring of chemical solutions, and the patient examination of evidence under microscopes. These laboratories represented a bridge between traditional police work and the emerging world of scientific criminal investigation, marking a significant step forward in the evolution of forensic science. As we drift toward the next chapter in this scientific journey, we can appreciate how these early laboratories laid the groundwork for the sophisticated forensic facilities we know today, their legacy continuing to influence modern criminal investigation methods. As forensic science continued to evolve in the early 20th century, the need for dedicated police laboratories became increasingly apparent. In the peaceful quiet of 1910, Auguste Ambroise Tardieu's vision of scientific police work began to materialize in Lyon, France, where Edmond Locard established what many consider to be the world's first true police crime laboratory. The laboratory, in these early days, the gentle hum of microscopes and the soft clink of glass beakers filled the air as Locard and his small team meticulously examined trace evidence. The laboratory's wooden floors would creak softly under their feet as they moved between workstations, carefully documenting their findings in leather-bound notebooks. The subtle scent of chemical reagents mixed with the musty air of the old building, creating an atmosphere of scientific discovery. Across the Atlantic, in 1923, Los Angeles Police Department established one of the first police crime laboratories in the United States. The lab began in a small room, illuminated by the warm California sun filtering through dusty windows. Here, dedicated scientists would spend long hours examining firearms evidence, analyzing suspicious powders, and studying questioned documents under magnifying glasses. The gentle progression of forensic laboratories continued as the Chicago Police Department followed suit in 1929, establishing their scientific crime detection laboratory at Northwestern University. The lab's corridors would echo with the soft footsteps of pioneering forensic scientists like Calvin Goddard, who developed groundbreaking techniques in firearms identification. In the calm of 1930, the Federal Bureau of Investigation opened its technical laboratory in Washington, D.C., beginning with a single agent and one microscope in a small office. The lab would gradually expand into one of the world's most sophisticated forensic facilities. The quiet dedication of early forensic scientists laid the foundation for what would become a vast network. Throughout the 1930s, more police departments across the globe began establishing their own laboratories. In London, the Metropolitan Police Laboratory at New Scotland Yard grew steadily, its scientists working diligently in rooms filled with the soft whirring of centrifuges and the subtle clicking of camera shutters as they documented evidence. These early laboratories, though modest by today's standards, represented a significant shift in how law enforcement approached criminal investigations. The methodical work conducted within their walls helped establish standard procedures for evidence collection, analysis, and documentation that we still use today. Scientists would carefully preserve crime scene materials in glass jars and wooden boxes, meticulously labeled with flowing handwritten notes. As these first police forensic labs developed their techniques and protocols, they began sharing knowledge across borders and oceans. The gentle rustle of papers being exchanged through international mail carried new discoveries and methodologies between laboratories, fostering a global community of forensic scientists. This collaborative spirit would prove essential in developing the standardized. The legacy of these pioneering laboratories continues to influence forensic science today, their early methods and principles having evolved into the sophisticated techniques we now use to solve crimes and serve justice. As forensic science continued to evolve through the mid-20th century, practitioners and investigators recognized an increasing need for standardized procedures and protocols. This gradual shift toward uniformity began in earnest during the 1940s and 1950s, as the field matured from its earlier experimental phases into a more systematic discipline. In those thoughtful post-war years, forensic scientists worked diligently to establish consistent methods for collecting, preserving, and analyzing evidence. The gentle rustle of papers could be heard in laboratories across the country as experts carefully documented their procedures, sharing knowledge through professional journals and conferences. The air was filled with a sense of purpose as they sought to bring order to what had previously been a somewhat scattered approach. One of the first areas to see comprehensive standardization was fingerprint analysis. The FBI's Identification Division, under the careful guidance of J. Edgar Hoover, developed detailed protocols for lifting, preserving, and comparing fingerprints. These methods spread slowly but surely through law enforcement agencies, like a quiet tide gradually reaching every shore. The familiar powder and brush technique was refined and standardized, ensuring that evidence could be reliably collected from even the most challenging crime scenes. In the peaceful laboratories of the 1950s, technicians worked to standardize blood analysis procedures. The methodical process of typing blood samples, measuring enzyme levels, and documenting results became increasingly uniform. The soft hum of centrifuges and the careful notations in laboratory journals became part of a daily ritual that would be recognized in any forensic lab across the country. Photography, too, underwent significant standardization during this period. The careful click of camera shutters documented crime scenes according to newly established protocols, ensuring that evidence was captured systematically. Measurement scales were consistently included in photographs, and standard angles were defined for different types of evidence. The American Academy of Forensic Sciences, founded in 1948, played a crucial role in this standardization movement. Through their regular meetings and publications, they helped establish best practices that would be adopted widely. The Academy's journal became a trusted source of methodological guidance, its pages filled with detailed procedures and careful observations. In the realm of toxicology, standardized procedures for detecting and measuring various substances in biological samples were developed. The precise measurements and careful chemical analyses became more reliable as laboratories adopted consistent protocols. The gentle clink of glass vessels and the measured steps of laboratory procedures became a familiar rhythm in forensic facilities everywhere. Document examination, too, saw the emergence of standard approaches. The careful study of handwriting, paper composition, and ink analysis followed increasingly uniform methods. In quiet rooms, examiners worked with magnifying glasses and comparison microscopes, following established procedures that would be recognized by their colleagues across the country. This period of standardization laid the groundwork for the more sophisticated forensic techniques that would follow. Like the careful construction of a solid foundation, these standardized procedures provided the stability needed for future advances. The field was gradually transforming from an art into a science, with repeatable methods and reliable results becoming the norm rather than the exception. As forensic science continued to evolve through the mid-20th century, a gentle but profound transformation was taking place in how law enforcement agencies integrated these scientific methods into their daily operations. The relationship between laboratory scientists and police officers, once distant and sometimes marked by skepticism, gradually grew into a harmonious partnership that would reshape criminal investigations forever. In the peaceful quiet of the 1950s, police departments across the United States and Europe began establishing dedicated liaison positions between their detective units and forensic laboratories. These specially trained officers, often called evidence technicians or crime scene investigators, learned to bridge the gap between traditional police work and the increasingly sophisticated world of forensic analysis. Picture the careful choreography that developed during this time: patrol officers learning to preserve crime scenes with greater precision, detectives consulting with laboratory specialists before collecting evidence, and forensic experts providing on-site guidance at complex crime scenes. This integration didn't happen overnight, but rather like a slow-moving stream, gradually carving new channels of cooperation and understanding. The Federal Bureau of Investigation played a particularly significant role in this integration process. Under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI's laboratory services expanded to assist local law enforcement agencies, offering training programs that taught officers the fundamentals of evidence collection and preservation. These programs, conducted in the calm atmosphere of the FBI Academy in Quantico, throughout the 1960s, larger police departments began incorporating mobile crime laboratories, specially equipped vehicles that brought forensic capabilities directly to crime scenes. These rolling laboratories, fitted with cameras, fingerprint equipment, and basic analytical tools, allowed for more immediate processing of evidence while maintaining the chain of custody that would be. The integration of forensic science into law enforcement also led to changes in police education and training. Police academies began incorporating forensic awareness into their basic training programs, teaching new recruits about the importance of physical evidence and proper documentation. Universities developed specialized programs in police science, combining traditional law. As the years passed, like leaves gradually changing color in autumn, the distinction between forensic scientist and law enforcement officer became less rigid. Many departments began hiring civilian forensic specialists who worked alongside sworn officers, each bringing their unique expertise to investigations. This collaboration fostered an environment where scientific methodology and the integration process also extended to the courtroom, where forensic experts and investigating officers learned to work together more effectively in presenting evidence to judges and juries. This cooperation helped strengthen the credibility of forensic evidence in legal proceedings, as scientific findings were now supported by proper collection procedures and clear This period of integration laid the groundwork for the modern era of criminal investigation, where science and law enforcement work hand in hand, each supporting and enhancing the other's capabilities in the pursuit of justice. The careful, methodical approach developed during this time continues to influence how forensic science is practiced in law enforcement agencies around the world. In the years following World War II, forensic science underwent a remarkable transformation, particularly in the field of trace evidence analysis. During the 1940s and 1950s, investigators began to understand that even the smallest particles could tell compelling stories about crimes and Dr. Paul Kirk, working quietly in his laboratory at the University of California, Berkeley, pioneered many of the fundamental principles of trace evidence analysis during this period. His methodical approach to examining fibers, hair, soil, and glass fragments helped establish standard procedures that would influence forensic science for decades to come. The development of new analytical techniques during this era brought about significant advances. The comparison microscope, already valuable for ballistics analysis, found new applications in examining trace evidence. Forensic scientists could now place two samples side by side, studying their characteristics with unprecedented precision. In 1950, the field took another step forward with the introduction of the gas chromatograph, an instrument that could separate and analyze complex mixtures of chemicals. This technology proved invaluable for examining trace amounts of substances found at crime scenes. The gentle clicking and whirring of these new machines became part of the laboratory's ambient soundtrack, as investigators worked to unlock the secrets held within minute pieces of evidence. During this period, Dr. Walter McCrone made significant contributions to the field of microscopy and trace evidence analysis. His work with polarized light microscopy allowed investigators to identify specific materials with greater accuracy than ever before. In his carefully organized laboratory, McCrone would often spend peaceful hours examining single particles of evidence, revealing their unique optical properties and the 1950s saw the emergence of specialized trace evidence units within major crime laboratories. These dedicated spaces were filled with the soft sounds of focused work, the careful measuring of samples, the gentle placement of slides under microscopes, and the methodical documentation of findings. Investigators learned to recognize the significance of seemingly insignificant details. A single fiber caught on a window frame, a microscopic paint chip transferred during a collision, or traces of soil that could connect a suspect to a crime scene. The Theodore Koslow case of 1953 demonstrated the growing importance of trace evidence analysis. Investigators were able to link Koslow to a murder through careful examination of glass fragments found on his clothing, matching them to a broken window at the crime scene. This case helped establish the validity of trace evidence analysis in court proceedings, as judges and juries began to understand the scientific reliability of these meticulous examinations. As the 1950s drew to a close, trace evidence analysis had become an essential component of forensic science. The field's development during this period laid crucial groundwork for future advances in forensic technology, while establishing systematic approaches to evidence collection and analysis that would continue to evolve in the decades to come. As forensic science continued to evolve through the mid-20th century, investigators began paying increasingly careful attention to some of the smallest pieces of evidence found at crime scenes, particularly hair and fiber samples. In the gentle quiet of forensic laboratories, skilled technicians would spend hours carefully examining these delicate traces under powerful microscopes, unlocking the stories they held within their microscopic structures. The systematic study of hair evidence in forensic contexts began to take shape in the 1950s, when researchers developed standardized methods for analyzing the distinctive characteristics of human and animal hair. Each strand of hair, when examined closely, revealed a wealth of information, from its color and texture to its microscopic structure and chemical composition. Like silent witnesses, during this period, forensic scientists discovered that hair samples could be particularly valuable in cases where no other physical evidence was available. They learned to examine the three main components of hair structure: the cuticle, cortex, and medulla, each layer offering unique identifying characteristics. The careful observation of these features, combined with the growing knowledge of how different treatments, fiber analysis developed alongside hair examination, becoming an equally important tool in the forensic scientist's repertoire. In the peaceful concentration of the laboratory, experts would meticulously study the properties of both natural and synthetic fibers found at crime scenes. They noted the gentle variations in color, the subtle differences in weave patterns, and the distinctive characteristics that could link a fiber to its source with remarkable precision. The 1960s and 1970s saw significant advances in the technical capabilities for hair and fiber analysis. New microscopic techniques, including the scanning electron microscope, allowed for even more detailed examination of these materials. Scientists could now observe the finest details of fiber structure and composition, while also developing better methods for collecting and preserving these delicate pieces. One particularly noteworthy development was the refinement of comparison microscopy, where two samples could be viewed side by side through a specialized microscope. This technique allowed forensic experts to make direct comparisons between known and questioned samples, leading to more accurate conclusions about their potential origins. As the field matured, forensic scientists also began to better understand the limitations of hair and fiber analysis. They recognized that while these methods could provide valuable investigative leads and supporting evidence, they couldn't always provide absolute identification. This growing awareness led to more careful and nuanced interpretations of hair and fiber evidence in criminal investigations and court proceedings. The practice of hair and fiber analysis continued to evolve with the emergence of new technologies and analytical methods. Scientists developed protocols for chemical analysis of hair samples, which could reveal information about drug use, exposure to toxins, and even dietary habits. These advances helped to establish hair and fiber analysis as forensic science continued to evolve through the mid-20th century. Investigators began paying closer attention to the unique marks left behind by tools used in crimes. Tool mark examination emerged as a fascinating specialized field, built upon the understanding that every tool leaves behind distinctive patterns and impressions, much like fingerprints do for human hands. In the gentle quiet of forensic laboratories, experts would carefully examine scratches, indentations, and striations left behind on surfaces, studying them with patient dedication. They discovered that the manufacturing process of tools creates microscopic imperfections on their surfaces, which then transfer unique patterns when the tools interact with other materials. Like soft whispers from the past, these marks began telling stories of how crimes were committed. The 1950s saw significant advancement in this field when prominent forensic scientist John E. Davis developed standardized methods for tool mark analysis. His work, conducted in the peaceful setting of his laboratory at the Oakland Police Department, established that even mass-produced tools develop individual characteristics through use and wear, making each one uniquely identifiable. Through the soft glow of comparison microscopes, examiners would spend hours studying the subtle patterns left behind. They learned to recognize the distinctive marks left by screwdrivers, wire cutters, hammers, and other implements commonly used in burglaries and break-ins. The process required infinite patience and attention to detail, as analysts carefully documented every ridge, groove, and scratch pattern. One particularly noteworthy case in 1963 demonstrated the power of tool mark analysis. In the quiet suburbs of Chicago, investigators matched distinctive marks on a broken window to a specific crowbar, helping solve a series of home invasions that had troubled the community for months. The evidence presented in court helped establish tool mark examination as a reliable forensic technique. As the years passed like gentle autumn leaves, the field continued to develop. By the 1970s, photography and casting techniques had improved significantly, allowing for better documentation and preservation of tool mark evidence. Forensic laboratories began creating reference collections of tool marks, carefully organizing countless examples of different types of impressions left by various tools. The development of the comparison microscope with its dual viewing system brought new precision to the field. Examiners could now simultaneously observe two specimens side by side, making it easier to identify matching patterns and characteristics. This technological advancement, though seemingly simple, represented a significant step forward in the accuracy of tool mark analysis. Throughout the 1980s and beyond, tool mark examination became increasingly sophisticated. Computer analysis began supplementing traditional visual comparison methods, though the trained human eye remained essential to the process. The field expanded to include the examination of marks left by firearms on bullets and cartridge cases, establishing important connections between ballistics and tool mark analysis. As we drift through this history, we can appreciate how tool mark examination contributed to the broader tapestry of forensic science, adding another layer of scientific precision to criminal investigations. The patient, methodical nature of this work continues to help investigators understand the silent stories left behind at crime scenes, providing valuable evidence in countless cases across the world. As forensic science continued to evolve through the mid-20th century, investigators began paying closer attention to two particularly telling types of trace evidence: glass and paint fragments. These seemingly insignificant pieces of evidence would prove to be invaluable in countless criminal investigations, offering silent testimony to the events that had transpired. In the peaceful laboratories of the 1950s, forensic scientists developed increasingly sophisticated methods for analyzing glass fragments. They discovered that glass from different manufacturers possessed distinct chemical compositions and physical properties. The gentle process of refractive index measurement, developed in 1953 by Brian Faulkner at the Home Office Forensic Science Laboratory in Britain, allowed scientists to match glass fragments with remarkable precision. Like watching ripples spread across a still pond, they observed how light bent as it passed through different glass samples, each telling its own unique story. Paint analysis evolved alongside glass examination, with automotive paint becoming particularly significant in hit-and-run cases. In the quiet halls of the FBI laboratory during the 1960s, researchers carefully cataloged the subtle variations in paint layers, creating detailed reference collections that would serve investigators for decades to come. Each layer of paint held within it a chemical signature, like chapters in a book waiting to be read by those who knew how to interpret them. The development of the comparison microscope specifically for paint analysis in 1962 by Walter McCrone brought new clarity to the field. Scientists could now observe two paint samples side by side, noting the delicate interplay of pigments, binders, and other components that made each sample unique. In the soft light of these microscopes, investigators could determine not only the make and model of vehicles involved in crimes, but also the specific year of manufacture based on the distinctive paint formulations used by different manufacturers. As the techniques refined through the 1970s, the analysis of glass fracture patterns emerged as another valuable tool. In the serene setting of forensic laboratories, scientists studied how glass breaks under different conditions, mapping the delicate patterns of radial and concentric cracks that spread like frozen waves across broken windows and windshields. They learned to determine the direction of force, the sequence of impacts, and even the approximate energy involved in breaking the glass. The introduction of scanning electron microscopy and X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy in the late 1970s brought new depths to both glass and paint analysis. These gentle yet powerful tools allowed investigators to examine the elemental composition of samples at an unprecedented level of detail. Like archaeologists carefully brushing away sand to reveal ancient artifacts, forensic scientists could now uncover the smallest variations in chemical composition that would link evidence to its source. Through the careful documentation of manufacturing processes and the creation of extensive databases, investigators built a foundation of knowledge that would serve future generations. The quiet, methodical work of these scientists transformed glass and paint analysis from simple visual comparison to a sophisticated scientific discipline, adding yet another chapter to the ever-expanding story of forensic science. Their legacy continues to influence modern forensic practice, as new technologies build upon these fundamental principles established during this pivotal period. As we drift into the 1960s, forensic science underwent a remarkable transformation through advances in chemical analysis. The gentle hum of sophisticated laboratory equipment began replacing the simpler tools of earlier decades, as investigators gained access to increasingly precise methods of examining trace evidence. In 1962, the introduction of gas chromatography to forensic laboratories marked a peaceful revolution in chemical analysis. This technique, which separated complex mixtures into their individual components, allowed forensic scientists to identify minute traces of substances with unprecedented accuracy. Like a patient gardener carefully sorting seeds, analysts could now distinguish between similar compounds and determine their precise compositions. The development of mass spectrometry in the mid-1960s brought another layer of analytical capability. This method, which measures the mass-to-charge ratio of ions, provided forensic scientists with detailed molecular fingerprints of evidence samples. In the calm, focused environment of the laboratory, investigators could now identify specific drugs, poisons, and other chemical compounds with remarkable precision. During this period, Dr. Walter Macrone made significant contributions to the field of microchemistry. His careful studies of microscopic particles and crystals helped establish standardized procedures for analyzing trace evidence. Working methodically in his Chicago laboratory, Macrone developed techniques that would influence forensic science for decades to come. The introduction of atomic absorption spectroscopy in 1965 provided a new way to detect and measure metallic elements in evidence samples. This technique proved particularly valuable in cases involving gunshot residue, helping investigators determine firing distances and identify specific ammunition types. Like gentle waves lapping at a shore, each new analytical method built upon the previous ones, creating a more complete picture of criminal evidence. Throughout the early 1970s, the field saw the emergence of more sophisticated drug testing methods. The quiet persistence of forensic chemists led to improved techniques for identifying controlled substances, as the rise in drug-related crimes created new challenges for law enforcement. The development of thin-layer chromatography provided a simple yet effective way to screen for various drugs and their metabolites. In 1974, the Forensic Sciences Foundation was established, helping to standardize chemical analysis procedures across laboratories. This organization worked to ensure that the gentle flow of scientific progress maintained consistent quality and reliability in forensic testing. Their guidelines helped create a harmonious approach to chemical analysis that balanced scientific rigor with practical application. The period also saw advances in the analysis of trace elements in hair samples, allowing investigators to gather information about a person's diet, environment, and possible exposure to toxins. Like reading the rings of a tree, these chemical signatures could tell stories about an individual's recent history. As we ease into the mid-1970s, these developments in chemical analysis had transformed forensic science into a more exact and reliable field. The quiet revolution in analytical techniques had given investigators powerful new tools for solving crimes, while establishing foundations for even more advanced methods to come. Each careful step forward in chemical analysis brought new clarity to the complex world of forensic evidence, helping to illuminate the path toward justice with scientific precision. As forensic science continued to evolve through the mid-20th century, one of the most significant developments came in the form of chromatography, an elegant and precise method for separating and analyzing complex mixtures. This technique, which would become fundamental to modern forensic analysis, had its roots in the quiet work of Russian botanist Mikhail Tsvet in the early 1900s, who first separated plant pigments using calcium carbonate-packed columns. The gentle evolution of chromatography in forensic science began to accelerate in the 1940s, when two British chemists, Archer Martin and Richard Synge, developed partition chromatography, for which they would later receive the Nobel Prize. Their work opened new possibilities for analyzing evidence at crime scenes, allowing investigators to separate and identify complex chemical mixtures with unprecedented precision. In the peaceful laboratory settings of the 1950s, gas chromatography emerged as a powerful tool for forensic scientists. This technique, which utilized inert gases to carry samples through heated columns, proved particularly valuable in analyzing volatile substances like accelerants in suspected arson cases. The soft hum of early gas chromatographs became a familiar sound in forensic laboratories across the world. The development of thin-layer chromatography in the 1960s brought another dimension to forensic analysis. This method, involving the careful application of samples to glass plates coated with silica gel or other materials, allowed for the separation and identification of drugs, dyes, and other compounds. Forensic scientists would work in hushed concentration, watching as different components of a mixture slowly separated into distinct bands, revealing their unique chemical signatures. High-performance liquid chromatography, or HPLC, emerged in the 1970s, offering even greater precision and sensitivity. The steady rhythm of HPLC pumps pushing solvents through columns became another characteristic sound in forensic laboratories. This technique proved particularly valuable for analyzing non-volatile compounds and larger molecules, expanding the range of evidence that could be examined scientifically. Throughout these developments, forensic scientists gradually refined their methods for sample preparation and analysis. They learned to work with increasingly smaller amounts of evidence, sometimes just microscopic traces left at crime scenes. The patience and precision required for chromatographic analysis became an essential skill for forensic chemists, who would often spend hours carefully preparing samples and monitoring their separation. The integration of chromatography with other analytical techniques, such as mass spectrometry, created even more powerful tools for forensic analysis. These combined methods allowed scientists to not only separate complex mixtures, but also identify their components with remarkable accuracy. The gentle whir of vacuum pumps and the soft glow of instrument displays became familiar features of modern forensic laboratories. As we drift toward the end of the 20th century, chromatography continued to evolve, with computerized systems making analysis more automated and precise. The careful documentation of chemical evidence using chromatographic methods became standard practice in forensic laboratories worldwide, contributing to countless criminal investigations and legal proceedings. This methodical approach to chemical analysis, would lay important groundwork for the coming revolution in DNA analysis and other advanced forensic techniques. As forensic science continued to evolve through the latter half of the 20th century, spectroscopy emerged as an invaluable tool in the analysis of trace evidence. This gentle yet powerful technique, which studies how matter interacts with electromagnetic radiation, would transform the way forensic scientists examined evidence at crime scenes and in laboratories. In the peaceful quiet of forensic laboratories, scientists began utilizing various forms of spectroscopy, each offering its own unique window into the molecular world of evidence. Infrared spectroscopy, first applied to forensic work in the 1950s, allowed investigators to identify organic compounds by examining how they absorbed infrared light. Like a careful artist studying the subtle variations in color, forensic scientists could now detect minute differences in chemical compositions of fibers, paints, and other materials. The introduction of atomic absorption spectroscopy in the 1960s brought new capabilities for analyzing metallic elements in evidence. In the hushed environment of the laboratory, scientists could now determine precise concentrations of metals in substances, from gunshot residue to toxic materials, with unprecedented accuracy. This technique proved particularly valuable in cases involving poisoning, where the quiet precision of spectroscopic analysis could reveal stories that might otherwise have remained hidden. As time flowed steadily forward, the development of Raman spectroscopy in the 1970s added another dimension to forensic capabilities. This technique, named after Indian physicist C.V. Raman, allowed scientists to examine the molecular structure of materials without destroying them, a gentle approach that preserved precious evidence while still revealing its secrets. The soft hum of laboratory equipment became a familiar sound as forensic scientists used Raman spectroscopy to analyze everything from drug samples to question documents. Throughout these years, mass spectrometry gradually became an essential tool in forensic laboratories worldwide. This technique, which measures the mass-to-charge ratio of ions, could identify unknown substances with remarkable precision. Like a patient librarian cataloging books, mass spectrometry could sort through complex mixtures and identify individual components, proving invaluable in cases involving trace evidence, drugs, and environmental forensics. The application of X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy brought new insights into the examination of inorganic materials. In quiet laboratory spaces, forensic scientists could now analyze the elemental composition of glass fragments, soil samples, and metal pieces, helping to establish connections between evidence found at different locations or to verify the authenticity of questioned documents. As these spectroscopic techniques became more sophisticated, they began working in harmony with other analytical methods, creating a comprehensive approach to forensic analysis. The gentle precision of these tools allowed investigators to piece together evidence with increasing accuracy, while their non-destructive nature preserved samples for future examination if needed. The impact of spectroscopy on forensic science continues to resonate through time, its applications growing more refined with each passing year. Like layers of sediment slowly building up to tell Earth's story, these techniques have accumulated to create a robust foundation for modern forensic analysis, each one adding its own unique contribution to the field's rich tapestry of scientific achievement. As forensic science continued to evolve through the latter half of the 20th century, the development of standardized drug testing protocols emerged as a crucial advancement in criminal investigations and public safety. In the peaceful quiet of forensic laboratories across the world, dedicated scientists worked methodically to create reliable methods for detecting and identifying controlled substances. The journey toward modern drug testing protocols began in earnest during the 1960s, when the growing concerns about substance abuse led to increased demand for accurate testing methods. Scientists like Leo Goldbaum and Irving Sunshine pioneered early techniques for detecting drugs in biological samples, working carefully with delicate equipment in their quiet laboratories, where the soft hum of centrifuges provided a steady backdrop to their research. By the early 1970s, thin-layer chromatography had become the standard preliminary screening method for drugs in forensic laboratories. Technicians would carefully prepare their samples, watching as the subtle separations occurred on the chromatography plates, revealing the distinctive patterns of different substances. The gentle process required patience and precision, as each test needed to be conducted with meticulous attention to detail. The introduction of immunoassay techniques in the mid-1970s brought new possibilities to drug testing. These methods, developed through the careful work of researchers like Roger Schubert, allowed for more sensitive and specific detection of drugs and their metabolites. In the quiet confines of medical examiner offices and crime laboratories, forensic toxicologists began implementing these new protocols, carefully documenting their findings in detailed reports. The 1980s saw the widespread adoption of gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS, as the gold standard for confirmatory drug testing. This sophisticated technique combined the separation capabilities of chromatography with the precise identification power of mass spectrometry. In climate-controlled laboratories, the soft whirring of vacuum pumps accompanied the careful work of forensic scientists as they processed evidence from criminal cases. Throughout this period, the development of chain of custody protocols became increasingly important. Each sample needed to be carefully tracked and documented from the moment of collection through final analysis. These procedures, though seemingly simple, required careful attention to detail and methodical record-keeping, ensuring that evidence would stand up to scrutiny in court. The evolution of drug testing protocols also led to the establishment of quality control measures and proficiency testing programs. Organizations like the American Academy of Forensic Sciences worked to develop standard operating procedures that would ensure consistent and reliable results across different laboratories. In quiet conference rooms and through careful correspondence, experts shared their knowledge and refined their methods. As we moved into the 1990s, advances in technology allowed for the detection of ever smaller quantities of substances, while computer systems helped manage the growing volume of data generated by these tests. The gentle clicking of keyboards became a common sound in forensic laboratories, as technicians carefully entered their findings into sophisticated laboratory information management systems. These developments in drug testing protocols continue to influence forensic science today, providing investigators with reliable tools for identifying substances and understanding their role in criminal cases. The methodical nature of these procedures, developed through years of careful research and refinement, remains a cornerstone of modern forensic science. As forensic science continued to evolve through the 1970s and into the 1980s, a particularly significant phase emerged known as the serology era. During this time, the analysis of blood and other bodily fluids became increasingly sophisticated, opening new doors in criminal investigations. In the laboratories of this period, forensic scientists developed more refined techniques for blood typing and enzyme analysis. The gentle whir of centrifuges and the careful pipetting of samples became familiar sounds as technicians worked to perfect their methods. The ABO blood typing system, already well established in medical settings, found new applications throughout these years. Scientists like Brian Wraxall and Margaret Pereira made significant contributions to the field of forensic serology. Their patient, methodical research led to the development of more sensitive tests for detecting and analyzing blood proteins and enzymes. In 1978, Wraxall introduced the groundbreaking multisystem analysis approach, which allowed forensic serologists to examine multiple genetic markers from a single sample. The quiet dedication of laboratory technicians during this era resulted in the refinement of techniques for analyzing other bodily fluids as well. Methods for detecting and typing saliva, semen, and other biological materials became more reliable and precise. The development of the acid phosphatase test for semen detection and the refinement of techniques for identifying amylase in saliva samples provided investigators with powerful new tools. In the peaceful setting of research facilities across the globe, scientists worked to standardize these serological techniques. The gentle process of knowledge sharing led to the establishment of quality control measures and proficiency testing programs. By 1980, most major crime laboratories had dedicated serology sections, staffed by specialists trained in these evolving methods. During this period, the examination of blood spatter patterns also gained prominence as a forensic discipline. Herbert MacDonald's careful studies of blood dynamics helped establish bloodstain pattern analysis as a valuable investigative tool. The patient observation of how blood droplets behaved under different conditions revealed stories about violent events that had previously gone untold. The serology era witnessed the successful resolution of numerous criminal cases through these advanced techniques. In laboratories filled with the soft sounds of careful work, forensic serologists helped solve cases that might have remained mysteries in earlier decades. The ability to link suspects to crimes through detailed analysis of biological evidence became an increasing. As the 1980s progressed, these serological techniques laid the essential groundwork for what would come next: the revolutionary advent of DNA analysis. The careful, methodical work of forensic serologists during this era established the protocols and practices that would prove crucial for handling and analyzing biological evidence in the DNA age. The legacy of the serology era continues to influence forensic science today, reminding us of the importance of careful laboratory technique and the value of steadily building upon established methods. The quiet dedication of those who worked during this period helped create the foundation for modern forensic biology, their patient efforts echoing through time in the protocols. As forensic science continued to evolve, investigators began paying closer attention to the subtle, yet revealing patterns left behind by blood at crime scenes. Blood pattern analysis, which emerged as a systematic discipline in the late 1950s and early 1960s, brought a new dimension to criminal investigations, allowing experts to reconstruct events with remarkable precision. Dr. Paul Kirk, working at the University of California, Berkeley, laid the groundwork for modern blood pattern analysis in 1955. His groundbreaking work demonstrated how blood droplets, when striking surfaces at different angles and velocities, created distinct patterns that could tell a story about violent events. The gentle arc of blood drops through the air. Throughout the 1960s, researchers developed increasingly sophisticated methods for analyzing these patterns. They observed how blood behaved differently when falling onto various surfaces, the way it spread on fabric versus wood, how it responded to different temperatures, and how environmental conditions affected its appearance over time. This patient, methodical research helped establish the fundamental principles that would guide Herbert MacDonald, often called the father of modern blood pattern analysis, made significant contributions during the 1970s. His careful studies and detailed documentation methods helped transform blood pattern analysis from an art into a science. MacDonald developed the first comprehensive training program for blood pattern analysts, teaching investigators to observe the gentle curves of blood drops, the subtle variations. The technique gained wider acceptance in the 1980s as courts began recognizing its validity in criminal proceedings. Analysts learned to distinguish between passive drops falling straight down, cast-off patterns from swinging weapons, and the fine mist of impact spatter. Each pattern type offered its own quiet testimony about the events that had transpired. The development of specialized tools and mathematical formulas allowed investigators to calculate the point of origin for blood patterns with increasing accuracy. By measuring the shape and direction of individual drops, analysts could trace their paths back through space, reconstructing the location where the blood first began its journey through the air. As technology advanced, digital photography and computer modeling enhanced the ability to document and analyze blood patterns. These tools helped analysts study the delicate interplay between force, gravity, and surface tension that determine how blood behaved at crime scenes. The field continued to evolve. Today, blood pattern analysis remains an important component of forensic science, though practitioners maintain a careful awareness of its limitations and the need for supporting evidence. The gentle art of reading these crimson patterns continues to provide valuable insights into the reconstruction of violent events, helping investigators understand the field stands as a testament to the patient observation and systematic study that characterizes the best of forensic science, reminding us how careful attention to detail can illuminate the darkness of criminal acts and help bring justice to those affected by violence. As forensic science continued to evolve through the late 1970s and early 1980s, investigators gained a powerful new tool in their analytical arsenal: enzyme typing. This gentle yet revolutionary advancement allowed forensic scientists to delve deeper into the molecular mysteries of evidence left at crime scenes, particularly in cases involving enzymes. Those quiet workers within our cells became silent witnesses to crimes through their unique patterns and variations. Scientists discovered that different individuals possessed slightly different forms of the same enzymes, creating distinctive profiles that could help identify or exclude suspects. This variation, known as in the comfortable quiet of forensic laboratories, technicians would carefully prepare their samples, treating them with specific chemicals and watching as the enzymes revealed their secrets through delicate chemical reactions. The process required patience and precision, as these biological catalysts were sensitive to temperature, light, and time. One of the most widely used enzyme systems was phosphoglucosamidase, or PGM, which proved particularly useful in analyzing blood and other bodily fluid evidence. Scientists also regularly examined other enzyme systems like esterase D and erythrocyte acid phosphatase, each offering additional layers of identifying information. These methods, though not as precise as later DNA analysis, provided the development of enzyme typing techniques was greatly influenced by the work of Dr. Brian Wraxall, who in the mid-1970s created the multi-system analysis approach. His methods allowed forensic scientists to examine multiple enzyme systems from a single sample, making the most of often limited evidence quantities. This thoughtful advancement helped preserve precious samples while maximizing the information. Throughout the 1980s, forensic laboratories across the world gradually incorporated enzyme typing into their standard procedures. The technique proved particularly valuable in sexual assault cases, where traditional blood typing alone was often insufficient. The ability to detect and analyze various enzymes. As with many forensic techniques, enzyme typing required careful validation and standardization. Scientists worked diligently to establish reliable protocols and quality control measures, ensuring that results would be both accurate and legally admissible. This methodical approach helped build trust in the technique within both the scientific and legal communities. The gentle hum of laboratory equipment and the careful notations in laboratory notebooks became part of the daily routine for forensic scientists of this era. They knew that each test they performed, each pattern they analyzed, could help bring justice and closure to victims and their families. while enzyme typing would eventually be superseded by DNA analysis. As forensic science continued to evolve through the late 1970s and into the 1980s, immunological techniques emerged as a powerful new tool in the forensic investigator's arsenal. These methods, which built upon our understanding of the body's immune system, opened up entirely new possibilities for identifying and analyzing. The development of immunological techniques in forensic science was rooted in the fundamental principle that antibodies could recognize and bind to specific proteins, creating detectable reactions. This gentle dance between molecules would prove invaluable in the analysis of blood, bodily fluids, and trace evidence. Scientists discovered that these techniques could help them identify the species' origin of biological samples and distinguish between different types of proteins with remarkable precision. One of the earliest and most widely adopted immunological methods was the precipitin test, refined by Paul Uhlenhuth in the early 1900s and continuously improved throughout the decades. This technique allowed investigators to determine whether a bloodstain was of human or animal origin by observing the formation of a delicate white ring when antiserum was carefully layered over a solution containing the unknown sample. As time flowed forward like a peaceful stream, more sophisticated immunological techniques emerged. The development of immunoelectrophoresis in the 1950s and its refinement through the 1970s provided forensic scientists with an even more precise tool. This method combined the specificity of antibody-antigen reactions with the separating power of electrical fields, allowing for the identification of multiple proteins in a single sample. The introduction of enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, ELISA, in the mid-1970s marked another quiet revolution in forensic science. This highly sensitive technique could detect minute traces of specific proteins, making it particularly valuable for analyzing small or degraded samples. Like a gentle whisper revealing secrets, ELISA could help identify the presence of drugs, hormones, and other substances that might otherwise have gone undetected. Throughout the 1980s, forensic laboratories around the world gradually incorporated these immunological methods into their standard procedures. The techniques proved especially valuable in cases involving sexual assault, where they could help identify seminal fluid and other biological evidence with greater accuracy than previous methods. One particularly noteworthy application was the development of immunological tests for species-specific hemoglobin, which allowed investigators to definitively distinguish between human and animal blood. This capability proved invaluable in cases where perpetrators attempted to mislead investigators by claiming that bloodstains were from animals rather than human victims. As these techniques became more refined, they began to play an increasingly important role in cold case investigations. Old evidence, carefully preserved in evidence lockers, could now be re-examined using these more sensitive methods, sometimes yielding new insights into long unsolved cases. The gentle precision of immunological techniques also helped bridge the gap between traditional forensic methods and the emerging field of DNA analysis. These methods provided a crucial stepping stone, helping forensic scientists understand the importance of molecular specificity and laying the groundwork for the genetic revolution that would soon transform the field. Like stars gradually appearing in an evening sky, these immunological techniques illuminated previously hidden aspects of criminal investigations, adding new layers of scientific certainty to forensic analysis. Their legacy continues to influence modern forensic practices, reminding us of the patient, methodical progress that has characterized the evolution of forensic science. As we drift into the mid-1980s, forensic science underwent perhaps its most revolutionary transformation with the advent of DNA analysis. Like gentle ripples spreading across still water, this breakthrough would forever change the landscape of criminal investigation and justice. In 1984, geneticist Alec Jeffreys at the University of Leicester made a remarkable discovery while studying hereditary diseases. As he examined X-ray films of DNA sequences, he noticed distinct patterns that were unique to individuals, much like the flowing lines of fingerprints that had transformed forensic science nearly a century before. He called these patterns DNA fingerprints, and soon realized their immense potential for forensic identification. The first application of DNA profiling in a forensic setting came in 1986 in the quiet English Midlands. In the villages of Narborough and Enderby, two tragic murders had left the community in distress. Through DNA analysis, investigators were able to link the crimes and, ultimately, identify Colin Pitchfork as the perpetrator, marking the first time DNA evidence had been used to solve a criminal case. The technique slowly spread through forensic laboratories like a gentle morning mist, gaining acceptance and refinement. The initial method, called restriction fragment length polymorphism, RFLP, required a substantial amount of well-preserved DNA, limiting its application. However, in 1983, Kary Mullies had developed the polymerase chain reaction, PCR, technique, which would soon revolutionize DNA analysis by allowing. As the calendar pages turned to the 1990s, forensic DNA analysis became increasingly sophisticated. The FBI established the Combined DNA Index System, CODIS, in 1990, creating a national database of DNA profiles from convicted offenders, much like the fingerprint databases of decades past. The system began as a pilot program with 14 state and local laboratories, growing steadily like a carefully tended garden. During this period, forensic scientists developed more precise methods of DNA analysis. Short tandem repeat (STR) testing emerged, offering greater discrimination power and requiring smaller samples. The technique could now extract useful DNA profiles from evidence as minimal as a few skin cells or a single hair root. The impact on cold cases was profound, as investigators revisited evidence collected years or even decades earlier. Like archaeologists carefully brushing away layers of sand to reveal ancient artifacts, forensic scientists could now unlock genetic secrets that had remained hidden in preserved evidence. Yet this period also brought important discussions about standards and reliability. The National Research Council issued reports in 1992 and 1996, establishing guidelines for DNA testing and statistical analysis. These frameworks helped ensure that this powerful tool would be applied with scientific rigor and ethical consideration. As we moved through the early 1990s, DNA analysis became increasingly accepted in courtrooms across the world, though not without careful scrutiny and occasional controversy. The technique that had begun in a Leicester laboratory had grown into a cornerstone of modern forensic science, offering unprecedented accuracy in human identification and forever changing how we approach criminal investigation. In the quiet laboratories of the University of Leicester in 1984, a groundbreaking discovery was taking shape that would forever transform forensic science. Dr. Alec Jeffreys, while conducting research on hereditary diseases, made an unexpected observation that would lead to what we now know as DNA fingerprinting. As he examined X-ray films of DNA samples under the soft laboratory lights, he noticed that on that September morning, as autumn leaves were beginning to turn, Jeffreys observed that certain regions of DNA contained sequences that repeated over and over, creating patterns as unique as traditional fingerprints. The gentle hum of laboratory equipment provided a backdrop as he realized the profound implications of what he was seeing. These repeated sequences, which he would later call minisadalites, varied from person. The first practical application of this revolutionary technique came in 1986 in a small English town called Enderby. A case involving the identification of a young boy in an immigration dispute demonstrated the power of DNA fingerprinting in establishing family relationships. The quiet certainty of science helped reunite a family, showing the human impact of this technological advancement. Shortly after, in a development that would ripple through the criminal justice system, DNA fingerprinting faced its first major forensic challenge. In the peaceful countryside of Leicestershire, two tragic murders had occurred, and traditional investigative methods had reached their limits. The case of Colin Pitchfork became the first where DNA evidence was used to solve a crime, leading as word of this new technique spread through the scientific community like a gentle wave. Laboratories around the world began adopting and refining the process. The original method, while groundbreaking, required a substantial amount of DNA and took considerable time to process. Scientists worked diligently in their laboratories, making incremental improvements, each small step forward contributing to the technique's evolution. By the early 1990s, advances in technology had made DNA fingerprinting more sensitive and efficient. The development of PCR, polymerase chain reaction, techniques allowed for the analysis of much smaller DNA samples, opening new possibilities in forensic investigation. Like a carefully tended garden, the field of DNA analysis continued to grow and flourish. The impact of DNA fingerprinting extended beyond criminal investigations. Its applications in paternity testing, identifying human remains, and understanding genetic relationships brought new clarity to questions that had previously relied on less certain methods. In quiet hospital laboratories and research facilities, this technique became an invaluable tool for understanding human identity and relationships. As we reflect on this pivotal discovery, we can appreciate how it grew from a serendipitous observation in a Leicester laboratory to become one of the most powerful tools in forensic science. The careful, methodical development of DNA fingerprinting techniques continues to this day, each refinement adding to our ability to uncover truth and serve justice with scientific precision. In the quiet laboratories of the 1980s, a revolutionary technique was slowly taking shape that would forever transform forensic science. The polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, emerged from the innovative mind of Kary Mullis, who first conceived of the idea during a peaceful nighttime drive along California's Highway 128 in 1983. As the gentle mountain curves guided his journey, Mullis contemplated a method that would allow scientists to create millions of copies of a specific DNA sequence. The development of PCR was like watching a delicate garden grow from a single seed. The process, which Mullies and his colleagues at Cetus Corporation carefully refined, involved a series of heating and cooling cycles that would separate DNA strands and allow them to replicate. Like a soft whisper becoming a chorus, a single DNA molecule could be amplified into billions of identical copies within just a few hours. By 1985, the first successful PCR experiments were being conducted in laboratories, their gentle hum of equipment becoming a familiar sound to forensic scientists. The technique required three main components: the DNA template to be copied, primers to initiate the copying process, and DNA polymerase to build the new strands. Initially, the process was labor-intensive, requiring technicians to manually move samples between water baths of different temperatures. The discovery of Taq polymerase in 1988 brought a peaceful revolution to the procedure. This heat-stable enzyme, isolated from bacteria living in hot springs, eliminated the need for constant enzyme replacement during the heating cycles. Like a patient guardian, Taq polymerase could withstand the high temperatures needed for DNA separation, while maintaining its ability to build new DNA strands. As the technique matured through the late 1980s and early 1990s, forensic laboratories began incorporating PCR into their daily routines. The method proved particularly valuable for analyzing minimal amounts of DNA evidence, such as single hairs or small bloodstains found at crime scenes. In the quiet hours of laboratory work, technicians could now amplify these tiny traces into workable samples for analysis. The impact of PCR on forensic science was profound yet gradual, like the steady flow of a river reshaping its banks. Cold cases that had remained unsolved for years could now be revisited with new hope. The technique allowed for the analysis of degraded DNA samples that were previously considered unusable, opening new possibilities in historical cases and archaeological investigations. By the early 1990s, automated thermal cyclers had become standard equipment in forensic laboratories, their rhythmic cycling of temperatures a constant presence in the background of scientific work. These machines brought consistency and reliability to the PCR process, allowing for more standardized results across different laboratories and jurisdictions. The development of PCR also led to more sophisticated DNA profiling techniques, enabling forensic scientists to analyze multiple genetic markers simultaneously. This advancement improved the statistical power of DNA evidence, making it an even more compelling tool in criminal investigations and courtroom proceedings. Like a carefully woven tapestry, each new application as DNA analysis techniques became more refined and widely adopted in the late 1980s and early 1990s, forensic scientists and law enforcement officials recognized the immense potential of creating centralized DNA databases. Like gentle waves gradually building momentum, the concept of collecting and storing DNA profiles for future reference began to take shape across the scientific community. In 1989, Virginia became the first state in America to establish a DNA database, creating a peaceful revolution in how law enforcement could connect evidence from different crime scenes. The database began modestly, like a small seed-taking root, collecting DNA profiles from convicted sex offenders. As the system proved its worth, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, seeing the value of this approach, began developing what would become known as the Combined DNA Index System, or CODIS, in 1990. Like a slowly flowing river connecting different streams, CODIS would eventually link local, state, and national DNA databases into one comprehensive network. In the United Kingdom, similar efforts were underway, leading to the creation of the world's first national DNA database in 1995. The National DNA Database, or NDNAD, began collecting samples from crime scenes and convicted offenders, carefully organizing and storing this valuable information. The database grew steadily, like a garden. These early databases required sophisticated computer systems and dedicated technicians working in climate-controlled rooms filled with the gentle hum of servers. The atmosphere in these facilities was one of focused concentration, as specialists meticulously processed and cataloged each DNA profile. The soft clicking of keyboards and quiet whirring of cooling fans created a symphony of modern forensic science. The success of these first DNA databases was demonstrated through numerous cold cases that were suddenly solved. Like pieces of a puzzle slowly coming together, DNA profiles from crime scenes would match with samples in the database, providing investigators with new leads in cases that had long gone cold. One particularly notable success came in 1991, when Virginia's database. As the 1990s progressed, more states and countries began developing their own DNA databases, sharing information and best practices across borders. The methodology for collecting and storing samples became increasingly standardized, like a well-choreographed dance performed by laboratories around the world. Scientists worked to ensure that DNA profiles could be easily compared and matched. The establishment of these first DNA databases marked a turning point in forensic science, creating a foundation for the modern era of criminal investigation. Like the careful preservation of ancient artifacts, these databases would become invaluable resources, holding the keys to countless unsolved mysteries and providing a new tool in the pursuit of justice. As we drift into the late 1990s and early 2000s, a new frontier in forensic science emerged quietly but steadily, like the gentle dawn of a digital age. The rise of personal computers, mobile phones, and the internet created an entirely new landscape for criminal investigation, one that would transform how evidence was gathered and analyzed. In 1995, the International Organization on Computer Evidence was established, marking a significant milestone in the formal recognition of digital forensics. Investigators began developing specialized tools and methodologies to carefully extract and preserve electronic evidence, treating digital artifacts with the same meticulous care once reserved for physical traces. Like the year 1998 brought the creation of EnCase, a groundbreaking forensic software tool that would become standard in digital investigations. Like a careful archaeologist brushing away sand to reveal ancient artifacts, EnCase allowed investigators to delicately recover deleted files, analyze system logs, and create perfect copies of digital evidence without. During this period, computer forensics laboratories began appearing in police departments across the world, their quiet rooms filled with the soft hum of specialized equipment. In these spaces, trained experts would patiently examine hard drives, each one potentially containing thousands of pieces of evidence hidden within its magnetic plates. The early 2000s saw the emergence of mobile phone forensics, as investigators realized that these increasingly common devices could hold crucial evidence in their memory chips and SIM cards. Tools like Celebrite UFED were developed, allowing investigators to gently extract text messages, call logs, and location data that could help piece together the movements and communications of persons of interest. In 2003, the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence, SWGDE, published its first standardized guidelines, providing a framework as structured and reliable as those used in traditional forensic disciplines. These guidelines helped ensure that digital evidence would be accepted in courts, just as DNA evidence had become. The field continued to evolve as social media platforms emerged and cloud storage became more prevalent. Forensic investigators learned to follow digital breadcrumbs across networks, tracing connections and reconstructing events through metadata and digital timestamps. Each piece of data was like a tiny puzzle piece, waiting to be carefully examined and placed in its proper context. By 2005, Digital forensics had become an integral part of many criminal investigations, working alongside traditional forensic methods. The field had developed its own specialized tools, terminology, and methodologies, while maintaining the same rigorous standards of evidence handling that had characterized forensic science since its inception. Throughout this period, investigators faced new challenges as encryption technologies improved and digital storage capacity grew exponentially. Yet like the patient work of early fingerprint analysts or DNA researchers, digital forensics experts developed increasingly sophisticated methods to preserve and analyze electronic evidence, contributing another vital chapter to the ever-evolving story of forensic science. This quiet revolution in forensic investigation continued to unfold as investigators learned to navigate both the physical and digital worlds in their quest for truth, marking another fascinating chapter in the ongoing development of forensic science. As digital technology became increasingly central to modern life, computer forensics emerged as a vital branch of forensic science. In the quiet laboratories and offices of the late 1990s and early 2000s, investigators began developing specialized techniques to examine digital evidence with the same careful precision their predecessors had once applied to fingerprints and blood spatter. The gentle hum of computer fans became a familiar sound as forensic experts learned to navigate the delicate process of preserving and analyzing digital data. They discovered that every keystroke, every saved file, and every deleted document left subtle traces on computer hard drives, much like the microscopic fibers and trace evidence that traditional forensic scientists had studied for decades. In 1999, the International Organization on Computer Evidence, IOCE, established the first standardized principles for handling digital evidence. These guidelines emphasize the importance of maintaining the integrity of original data, creating exact duplicates for analysis, and documenting every step of the examination process. The methodical approach echoed the careful protocols developed for handling. Computer forensics specialists developed specialized tools and software that could recover deleted files, analyze network traffic, and reconstruct digital timelines. The EnCase forensic software platform, introduced in 1998, became a standard tool, allowing investigators to create perfect copies of hard drives without altering. As the field matured, investigators learned to examine metadata, the hidden information about digital files that revealed when they were created, modified, or accessed. This digital fingerprint proved as valuable as physical fingerprints had been to earlier generations of forensic scientists. The steady advancement of technology brought new challenges and opportunities, as mobile devices, cloud storage, and the early 2000s saw the establishment of specialized computer forensics units within law enforcement agencies worldwide. In these quiet, climate-controlled rooms, investigators worked methodically to extract and analyze digital evidence from computers involved in criminal cases. The work required both technical expertise and traditional investigative skills, combining the old and notable cases demonstrated the growing importance of computer forensics. The BTK killer, who had eluded capture for decades, was finally identified in 2004, partly through metadata on a floppy disk he had sent to police. This case illustrated how digital evidence could complement traditional forensic techniques, creating a more comprehensive approach to criminal investigation. The field continued to evolve as technology advanced, with forensic experts developing new methods to examine increasingly sophisticated digital devices. Like the careful analysis of physical evidence that had characterized forensic science since its inception, computer forensics required patience, precision, and attention to detail. The methodical work of as digital forensics continued to evolve, the proper handling of digital evidence became increasingly crucial to maintaining its integrity and admissibility in court. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, forensic scientists and legal experts worked together to establish standardized protocols for collecting, preserving, and analyzing digital evidence. The delicate nature of digital information required entirely new approaches to evidence handling. Unlike traditional physical evidence, digital data could be altered or destroyed with a single keystroke, leading to the development of write-blocking technologies that prevented inadvertent modifications during examination. Forensic investigators learned to create perfect. In 1999, the International Organization on Computer Evidence, IOCE, established 5 fundamental principles for digital evidence handling that would become widely adopted. These principles emphasize the importance of maintaining detailed documentation of all actions taken with digital evidence, ensuring that original evidence remained unchanged. The careful documentation of the chain of custody took on new dimensions in the digital realm. Investigators began using specialized software tools to calculate hash values, unique mathematical fingerprints, that could verify whether digital evidence had remained unchanged since its collection. These hash values provided courts with a way to authenticate digital evidence and confirm its integrity throughout the investigation. As mobile devices became ubiquitous in the early 2000s, forensic scientists developed new methodologies for handling evidence from smartphones, tablets, and other portable electronics. Special consideration had to be given to preventing devices from connecting to networks, which could alter their contents or allow remote wiping of data. Faraday bags and shields, which blocked electromagnetic signal. The growing volume of digital evidence presented unique storage challenges. A single case could involve terabytes of data from multiple devices, requiring secure facilities with climate-controlled environments to preserve both the physical devices and their contents. Forensic laboratories began investing in sophisticated storage systems with redundant backups. Training programs emerged to teach proper digital evidence handling techniques to law enforcement personnel and forensic scientists. Organizations like the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, developed detailed guidelines for digital evidence handling, which were gradually refined through practical experience and technological advancement. The field continued to adapt as cloud storage and internet-based services complicated the traditional concepts of evidence location and jurisdiction. Investigators learned to work with service providers and navigate international laws regarding data access and preservation. The development of specialized tools and techniques for collecting evidence from cloud services became an important focus of forensic research and development. Throughout this period, courts gradually developed standards for determining the admissibility of digital evidence, building upon existing legal frameworks while acknowledging the unique characteristics of digital information. The careful handling of digital evidence became essential not only for preserving its forensic value, but also for ensuring. These developments in digital evidence handling procedures laid the groundwork for modern cybercrime investigations and continued to evolve as new technologies emerged. The principles established during this period remain fundamental to digital forensics, even as the field continues to adapt to new challenges and technological innovations. As digital technology became increasingly sophisticated, so too did the techniques used to investigate cybercrimes. In the early 2000s, forensic scientists began developing specialized methods to track and analyze digital footprints left behind by cybercriminals. These gentle yet persistent investigative approaches would transform how law enforcement. One of the most significant developments came in 2003, when investigators began using network forensics to capture and analyze network traffic in real time. Like a patient observer watching ripples spread across a calm pond, forensic experts could now monitor data packets as they moved through digital spaces, revealing patterns and connections previously hidden from view. The emergence of malware forensics brought new challenges and possibilities. Investigators learned to carefully preserve and study malicious code, much like traditional forensic scientists might preserve trace evidence from a crime scene. They developed sophisticated sandboxing techniques, creating controlled virtual environments where suspicious programs could be safely examined without risk to other systems. In 2006, the International Organization on Computer Evidence, IOCE, established guidelines for handling digital evidence across borders, recognizing that cybercrime often transcended traditional geographical boundaries. This quiet revolution in forensic science meant that investigators in different countries could now work together seamlessly, sharing techniques and findings across continents. The development of memory forensics became particularly important during this period. Like archaeologists carefully brushing away layers of sand to reveal ancient artifacts, forensic investigators learned to capture and analyze the contents of a computer's volatile memory, recovering precious fragments of evidence that would otherwise be lost when a system powered down. Social media forensics emerged as another vital tool, as investigators developed methods to track digital breadcrumbs across various platforms. They learned to piece together timelines and connections from posts, messages, and metadata, much like traditional detectives might follow a trail of physical evidence. By 2010, cloud forensics had become an essential component of cybercrime investigations. As more data moved to remote servers, investigators adapted their techniques to handle evidence stored across multiple locations and jurisdictions. They developed new tools for accessing and analyzing cloud-stored data while maintaining its integrity and chain of custody. The field of mobile device forensics grew increasingly sophisticated, with investigators learning to recover deleted messages, location data, and application usage patterns from smartphones and tablets. These devices, which had become integral to daily life, often held crucial evidence in both cyber and traditional crimes. Throughout this evolution, the principles of traditional forensic science remained fundamental. Just as fingerprint analysis requires careful attention to detail and standardized procedures, cybercrime investigators developed rigorous protocols for handling digital evidence. They learned to document their findings meticulously, ensuring that their work would stand up to scrutiny in court. The development of automated forensic tools helped investigators manage the growing volume of digital evidence. These tools, like silent assistants, could search through vast amounts of data, identifying patterns and anomalies that might take human investigators weeks or months to discover. Yet human expertise remained essential, as experienced investigators knew how to interpret the results and understand their significance within the broader context of each case. As we drift into the period between 2005 and 2015, forensic DNA technology underwent remarkable advancements that transformed the field of criminal investigation. During these years, laboratories began implementing increasingly sophisticated techniques that allowed investigators to analyze ever smaller amounts of genetic material with greater precision and reliability. One of the most significant developments was the refinement of low-copy number DNA analysis, which enabled forensic scientists to generate DNA profiles from just a few cells. This gentle revolution in sensitivity meant that investigators could now obtain useful genetic information from items that had been merely touched or brushed against, opening new possibilities in cases where traditional DNA evidence was scarce. In 2008, the introduction of rapid DNA analysis systems began changing the landscape of forensic investigation. These instruments, about the size of a desktop printer, could process DNA samples and generate profiles in under 2 hours, rather than the days or weeks previously required in traditional laboratory settings. The quiet hum of these machines became a familiar. The period also saw the emergence of familial DNA searching, a technique that could identify potential relatives of an unknown suspect by looking for partial matches in DNA databases. This method, though controversial, helped solve several cold cases, including the identification of the Grim Sleeper serial killer in Los Angeles in 2010. Next-generation sequencing technologies, slowly but steadily making their way into forensic laboratories, allowed scientists to analyze hundreds of thousands of DNA sequences simultaneously. This advancement provided unprecedented detail about genetic variations, helping to determine physical characteristics like eye color, hair color, and ancestry with increasing accuracy. The development of touch DNA analysis continued to improve, allowing investigators to recover genetic material from items that had been handled only briefly. The gentle pressure of fingertips on surfaces could now tell stories that had previously remained hidden, leading to breakthroughs in cases that had long gone cold. During this time, mitochondrial DNA analysis became more refined, offering new ways to trace maternal lineage and identify remains in cases where nuclear DNA was too degraded to analyze. This technique proved particularly valuable in identifying victims of mass disasters and historical remains. The field also saw the introduction of probabilistic genotyping software, which used complex algorithms to interpret mixed DNA samples that contained genetic material from multiple contributors. These programs helped analysts make sense of previously inconclusive results, quietly revolutionizing how complex DNA evidence was analyzed and presented in court. As these technologies evolved, so too did the standards and protocols surrounding their use. The Scientific Working Group on DNA Analysis Methods, SWGDAM, continued to develop and refine guidelines for the forensic DNA community, ensuring that these powerful new tools were used responsibly and effectively. By 2015, many laboratories had begun implementing automated systems for DNA extraction and analysis, reducing the potential for human error while increasing efficiency. The software of robotic platforms became a common sound in modern forensic facilities, as technology continued its steady march forward in service of justice and truth. In the ever-evolving landscape of forensic science, one of the most transformative developments of the 2010s has been the emergence of rapid DNA analysis. This groundbreaking technology, which began to take shape around 2010, represented a remarkable shift in how DNA evidence could be processed and utilized in criminal investigations. Picture, if you will, the gentle hum of a sophisticated machine, about the size of a desktop printer, working quietly yet efficiently to analyze DNA samples in a matter of hours rather than days or weeks. This was the promise of rapid DNA technology, which brought the power of a forensic laboratory into a compact, automated system that could be operated with minimal training. The development of this technology was carefully nurtured through collaboration between the FBI, the Department of Defense, and various private companies. In 2010, the FBI began its Rapid DNA initiative, working to create standards and protocols that would ensure the reliability and accuracy of these new systems. The air of anticipation was palpable as scientists and law enforcement officials watched the technology slowly mature. By 2015, the first rapid DNA instruments were being implemented in various police departments across the United States. These systems could process DNA samples and generate profiles in approximately 90 minutes, a dramatic improvement from the traditional processing time of days or weeks. The quiet efficiency of these machines brought a new rhythm to forensic laboratory. One of the most significant applications of rapid DNA analysis emerged in booking stations, where law enforcement could now process DNA samples from arrestees while they were still in custody. The soft whir of these instruments became a familiar sound in booking facilities, as they worked to compare samples against databases of known offenders. The technology proved particularly valuable in time-sensitive cases, such as missing persons investigations or urgent public safety threats. In these situations, the ability to quickly process DNA evidence could mean the difference between solving a case promptly or facing lengthy delays. The gentle persistence of these machines worked tirelessly, providing investigators with crucial information when time was of the essence. As we moved toward the latter half of the 2010s, rapid DNA technology continued to evolve and improve. The instruments became more refined, more reliable, and increasingly automated. The quiet revolution they represented was changing the landscape of forensic science, bringing DNA analysis closer to the point of need, whether in police stations, border crossings, or disaster sites. The implementation of rapid DNA analysis required careful consideration of privacy concerns and legal frameworks. Guidelines were thoughtfully developed to ensure that this powerful technology would be used responsibly and ethically. Like a slowly flowing river, the integration of rapid DNA analysis into the criminal justice system proceeded steadily, but deliberately, with each step carefully considered and evaluated. As we look back on this period, we can see how rapid DNA analysis represented a significant milestone in the history of forensic science. It brought the power of DNA analysis out of centralized laboratories and into the field, while maintaining the high standards of accuracy and reliability that forensic science demands. The gentle evolution of this technology continues to this day, promising even as forensic science continued to evolve in the early 21st century. A groundbreaking development emerged that would transform how investigators collected and analyzed DNA evidence. Touch DNA, also known as trace DNA or contact DNA, represented a remarkable advancement in forensic capabilities, allowing scientists to obtain genetic profiles from microscopic amounts of cellular material left behind by mere skin contact with objects or surfaces. This gentle revolution in DNA analysis began to take shape around 2005, when researchers discovered that even the slightest touch could transfer enough skin cells for DNA testing. These cells, naturally shed from our bodies throughout the day, contain the genetic information needed for identification. Like soft whispers from the past, these cellular traces began telling stories that had previously gone unheard. The sensitivity of touch DNA analysis proved particularly valuable in cases involving handled objects, door handles, steering wheels, weapons, and clothing. Each surface potentially held a silent record of those who had touched it, waiting to be revealed through careful scientific examination. The process involved delicately swabbing these surfaces with specialized collection materials. In one noteworthy case from 2008, touch DNA analysis helped solve a decade-old Colorado murder when investigators retrieved genetic material from the waistband of a victim's clothing. The gentle persistence of scientific progress had preserved crucial evidence, waiting for technology to advance enough to reveal its secrets. The technique continued to improve through the 2010s, becoming increasingly sensitive and reliable. Scientists developed enhanced collection methods and more sophisticated analysis protocols, allowing them to work with ever smaller amounts of genetic material. Like patient archivists, forensic specialists learned to carefully preserve and analyze these microscopic traces of human presence. Touch DNA analysis brought new hope to cold cases, as investigators could return to preserved evidence and apply these new techniques to items that had been previously examined. The quiet revolution of this technology meant that even decades-old evidence might still hold answers, waiting to be discovered through modern scientific methods. However, this increased sensitivity also brought new challenges. The very capability that made touch DNA so powerful, its ability to detect minimal amounts of genetic material, meant that investigators needed to be especially careful about contamination. They developed new protocols for evidence collection and handling, working in clean environments with protective gear to preserve the integrity of these delicate samples. As we move through the 2010s and into the 2020s, touch DNA capabilities continue to expand, becoming more refined and reliable. The technology found applications beyond criminal investigations, helping to identify missing persons, verify family relationships, and even trace the history of handled historical artifacts. Like gentle layers of time itself, this remarkable capability represented another step in the long journey of forensic science, from the first fingerprint analyses to the molecular level of genetic identification. Touch DNA stood as a testament to human ingenuity and the persistent quest to uncover truth through scientific means, all while respecting the delicate nature of the evidence left behind by human contact. As DNA analysis techniques continued to evolve, a powerful new investigative tool emerged in the form of familial DNA searching. This method, which began gaining traction in the early 2000s, represented a gentle yet significant expansion of traditional DNA matching capabilities, like ripples spreading across still waters. Familial DNA searching works by looking not just for exact matches in DNA databases, but also for close biological relatives of potential suspects. The technique relies on the natural inheritance patterns of DNA, where close family members share more genetic markers than unrelated individuals. Like following delicate threads in an intricate tapestry, investigators, the United Kingdom pioneered this approach in 2002, when the UK's Forensic Science Service first developed the methodology. The technique gained widespread attention in 2004 with the successful resolution of the Craig Harmon case, where familial searching helped identify a man who had thrown a brick from a bridge. In the United States, the adoption of familial DNA searching unfolded more gradually, like autumn leaves slowly changing color. California became the first state to formally adopt the technique in 2008, following careful consideration of privacy concerns and ethical implications. The method proved its worth. The technique requires sophisticated statistical analysis and careful interpretation. Scientists must examine the number and pattern of shared genetic markers, considering factors like mutation rates and population genetics. Like a skilled artisan working with delicate materials, forensic experts developed increasingly refined methods for calculating the likelihood of true biological relationships. As the technique spread, it sparked thoughtful discussions about privacy and civil liberties. Some worried about the implications of searching for relatives of people whose DNA was in criminal databases, while others saw it as a valuable tool for solving previously unsolvable cases. These conversations floated through courtrooms and legislative chambers like gentle breezes, leading to varying policies across different jurisdictions. Maryland and Washington, D.C. chose to prohibit familial searching, while states like Texas, Virginia, and Colorado embraced it with specific guidelines and protocols. Each jurisdiction carefully weighed the balance between investigative power and privacy rights, like scales slowly finding their equilibrium. The technique has continued to evolve, with improvements in statistical analysis and database searching algorithms making the process more precise and reliable. Modern familial DNA searching can now detect relationships as distant as third cousins, though the certainty of the connection decreases with genetic distance, like stars becoming fainter as they recede into the night sky. As we move forward, familial DNA searching remains a powerful yet controversial tool in the forensic science toolkit, representing both the remarkable capabilities of modern genetic analysis and the complex ethical considerations that accompany such advanced technologies. As we drift into the most recent chapter of forensic science history, from 2015 to the present day, we witness an extraordinary integration of traditional and cutting-edge techniques, where various forensic disciplines seamlessly merge with digital technologies and artificial intelligence. Like threads being carefully woven into an intricate tapestry, modern forensic science has become increasingly interconnected and sophisticated. In these recent years, forensic laboratories have transformed into highly automated environments, where robotic systems carefully process evidence alongside human experts. The gentle hum of advanced instruments has become a familiar sound in these spaces, where traditional microscopes now share counter space with digital imaging systems and portable scanning devices. One of the most significant developments has been the creation of unified forensic databases that connect different types of evidence. Imagine a delicate web of information, where fingerprints, DNA profiles, ballistic data, and digital evidence all interconnect, allowing investigators to draw connections that might have remained hidden in earlier times. The National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, NIBIN, enhanced in 2016, now communicates seamlessly with other forensic databases, creating a more comprehensive investigative tool. The emergence of cloud-based forensic platforms has allowed for unprecedented collaboration between laboratories across different regions and countries. Like a gentle breeze carrying seeds across vast distances, these digital platforms enable the sharing of expertise and resources, breaking down geographical barriers that once limited forensic investigations. Artificial intelligence and machine learning have become invaluable allies in forensic science. These systems, working quietly in the background, can analyze patterns in bloodstain evidence, enhance surveillance footage, and process vast amounts of digital data. In 2018, the FBI implemented advanced AI systems to assist in analyzing complex DNA mixtures, bringing new clarity to previously challenging samples. The integration of mobile forensic technologies has brought the laboratory into the field. Portable DNA analyzers, handheld spectrometers, and advanced imaging devices allow investigators to gather preliminary results at crime scenes, like carrying a miniature laboratory in their hands. These developments have significantly reduced the time between evidence collection and analysis, while maintaining the rigorous standards that forensic science demands. Virtual reality and 3D scanning technologies have revolutionized crime scene documentation and court presentations. Investigators can now create detailed, immersive reconstructions of crime scenes, preserving them exactly as they were found, while allowing for later analysis from any angle or perspective. These digital preservations serve as silent witnesses, speaking across time with unprecedented clarity and detail. Environmental forensics has gained prominence in these recent years, as investigators apply their skills to cases of environmental crimes and climate-related issues. New techniques for analyzing soil compositions, water contamination, and air quality have expanded the scope of forensic science beyond traditional criminal investigations. As we rest here in the present moment, we can observe how modern forensic integration has created a more holistic approach to investigation and analysis. The field continues to evolve, embracing new technologies while maintaining the careful, methodical approach that has characterized forensic science since its earliest days. Like a river flowing steadily toward the future, forensic science carries forward the wisdom of its past while adapting to meet the challenges of tomorrow. As forensic science entered the digital age, artificial intelligence began playing an increasingly vital role in criminal investigations and evidence analysis. In the calm, methodical laboratories of the 2020s, AI systems work quietly alongside human experts, processing vast amounts of data with remarkable precision and patience. The integration of AI into forensic science has been particularly gentle and gradual, like water slowly filling a pond. Beginning in the mid-2010s, machine learning algorithms were carefully trained to assist with fingerprint analysis, creating a peaceful collaboration between human expertise and computational power. These systems could softly suggest potential matches from databases containing millions of prints, significantly reducing the time needed for identification while maintaining high accuracy. In the realm of DNA analysis, AI has brought a soothing efficiency to the process of examining complex genetic profiles. Advanced algorithms can now delicately separate mixed DNA samples, identifying individual contributors with a precision that would have seemed like science fiction just decades ago. The soft hum of computers running these sophisticated programs has become a familiar sound in modern forensic laboratories. Facial recognition, AI, has evolved to assist in analyzing surveillance footage and photographs, working tirelessly through the night to help identify persons of interest. These systems can patiently process thousands of images per second, matching facial features against existing databases with remarkable accuracy. In the peaceful hours of early morning, investigators often arrive to find that AI has provided new leads while they slept. Pattern recognition AI has brought a new dimension to blood spatter analysis, gently examining crime scene photographs to reconstruct events with mathematical precision. The algorithms work methodically, considering countless variables such as velocity, angle, and surface texture to create detailed reconstructions of incidents. In document analysis, AI systems now carefully examine handwriting patterns, paper composition, and ink characteristics, providing detailed reports while human experts rest. These systems can detect subtle forgeries and alterations that might escape even the most experienced human analyst, working with unwavering attention to detail. The development of natural language processing has allowed AI to assist in analyzing written evidence, such as suicide notes, threatening letters, and ransom demands. These systems quietly process linguistic patterns, helping to identify authorship and authenticity while maintaining the solemnity appropriate to such sensitive materials. As we drift toward the end of our journey through forensic science history, we see AI continuing to evolve in gentle waves of innovation. Recent developments include AI systems that can analyze gunshot residue patterns, predict the degradation of evidence over time, and even assist in reconstructing fragmented evidence, like torn documents or shattered glass. Yet amidst all this technological advancement, the human element remains central to forensic science. AI serves as a patient assistant, working alongside forensic experts rather than replacing them. Like a careful librarian organizing vast amounts of information, AI helps manage and analyze the growing complexity of modern forensic evidence, allowing human investigators to focus their expertise where it matters most. As we rest in this moment of technological harmony, we can appreciate how far forensic science has come from its earliest days of simple fingerprint analysis to today's sophisticated AI-assisted investigations, all while maintaining its fundamental goal of seeking truth through scientific inquiry. As forensic science continued to evolve in the modern era, advanced imaging techniques emerged as powerful tools that would revolutionize how evidence was analyzed and documented. In the peaceful laboratories and crime scenes of the early 21st century, investigators began incorporating sophisticated visualization technologies that could reveal previously invisible details. The development of alternative light sources in the 1990s gently paved the way for more advanced optical methods. These specialized lights and filters could make latent evidence glow softly in the darkness, revealing trace materials, bodily fluids, and subtle marks that might otherwise go unnoticed. Investigators would work in dimmed rooms, carefully scanning surfaces with different wavelengths of light, watching as hidden clues emerged like stars appearing in the evening sky. 3D scanning technology brought another dimension to forensic documentation. Starting around 2010, crime scene investigators began using laser scanners that could create precise three-dimensional models of entire scenes. These scanners would quietly rotate, sending out thousands of invisible laser points that mapped every surface and object with remarkable accuracy. The resulting digital models allowed investigators to virtually revisit crime scenes months or years later, measuring distances and studying spatial relationships with a degree of precision that traditional photography could never achieve. The gentle evolution of microscopic imaging continued to reveal ever smaller details. The scanning electron microscope, SEM, became an invaluable tool, capable of magnifying evidence up to 500,000 times while providing extraordinary depth and clarity. In the hushed confines of forensic laboratories, scientists could examine the finest structures of hair, fibers, and trace materials, each tiny detail telling its own story about how evidence might have been transferred or altered. Digital radiography and computed tomography brought new insights to forensic pathology. Unlike traditional X-rays, these technologies could create detailed cross-sectional images of bodies and objects, allowing investigators to examine internal structures without disturbing the evidence. The soft whir of CT scanners became a familiar sound in modern morgues, as pathologists carefully constructed virtual maps of injury patterns and foreign objects. Hyperspectral imaging, developed initially for satellite surveillance, found its way into forensic science in the 2010s. This technology could detect subtle variations in material composition that were invisible to the naked eye. In quiet moments of careful analysis, forensic scientists could distinguish between similar-looking substances, reveal altered documents, or identify trace evidence through its unique spectral signature. The integration of these advanced imaging techniques with digital analysis software created new possibilities for evidence interpretation. Sophisticated algorithms could enhance image quality, remove visual noise, and help analysts focus on significant details. In climate-controlled rooms, forensic imaging specialists would spend hours carefully processing digital data, gradually bringing hidden details into sharp focus. As we approach the present day, these imaging technologies continue to become more refined and accessible. Portable versions of once massive laboratory equipment now allow investigators to capture high-quality images directly at crime scenes. The gentle progression of imaging technology serves as a reminder of how far forensic science has come from its early days of simple magnifying glasses and sketch artists, while pointing toward future possibilities yet to be discovered. As forensic science continued to evolve in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, one of the most significant innovations was the development of mobile forensic laboratories, bringing sophisticated analysis capabilities directly to crime scenes. These portable facilities emerged from humble beginnings in the 1970s, when simple evidence collection vans began carrying basic equipment to crime scenes. In the peaceful quiet of early mornings, these specialized vehicles would arrive at crime scenes, their gentle humming engines bringing with them the promise of scientific precision. The first truly comprehensive mobile forensic laboratory was introduced by the FBI in 1984, featuring basic analysis equipment and microscopes. These early units were essentially converted recreational vehicles, carefully fitted with scaled-down versions of laboratory equipment. Through the softer, more contemplative moments of the 1990s, mobile laboratories gradually became more sophisticated. They began incorporating digital photography stations, basic DNA processing capabilities, and computer systems for preliminary analysis. The gentle whir of generators powered increasingly complex equipment, while climate-controlled environments ensured the preservation of delicate evidence. By the early 2000s, mobile forensic laboratories had evolved into highly specialized vehicles, each designed for specific types of investigation. Some focused on drug analysis, others on trace evidence collection, and still others on digital forensics. The steady progress of technology allowed these mobile units to become increasingly self-sufficient, carrying their own water supplies, power generation systems, and satellite communication equipment. One particularly noteworthy development came in 2005, when the European Network of Forensic Science Institutes introduced standardized guidelines for mobile laboratories, ensuring consistent quality across different jurisdictions. These guidelines, developed through careful consideration and collaborative effort, helped establish uniform procedures for evidence collection and analysis in the field. The gentle evolution of mobile forensic capabilities continued as manufacturers began designing custom vehicles specifically for forensic work. Companies like Velocity Worldwide and Matthew Specialty Vehicles created mobile units with advanced features such as automated evidence tracking systems, specialized lighting for different types of evidence collection, and sophisticated air filtration systems to prevent contamination. In more recent years, mobile forensic laboratories have incorporated rapid DNA analysis capabilities, allowing preliminary genetic testing to be conducted at crime scenes within hours rather than days or weeks. The soft buzz of these portable machines has become a familiar sound at major crime scenes, providing investigators with crucial information in real time. The impact of mobile forensic laboratories has been particularly significant in rural areas and developing regions, where access to traditional laboratory facilities might be limited. These units have helped bridge the gap between urban and rural forensic capabilities, bringing advanced scientific analysis to previously underserved areas. As we drift toward the present day, mobile forensic laboratories continue to evolve, incorporating new technologies like portable mass spectrometers, advanced imaging systems, and artificial intelligence-assisted analysis tools. The gentle progress of this field reflects a broader trend in forensic science toward bringing laboratory capabilities directly to where they are needed most, ensuring that critical evidence can be processed and analyzed with minimal delay and maximum precision. As we drift into contemplation of the future of forensic science, we find ourselves at the threshold of remarkable possibilities that would have seemed like science fiction to the early pioneers of fingerprint analysis. The gentle progression of technology continues to reshape how we understand and process evidence, leading us toward increasingly sophisticated methods of uncovering truth. One of the most promising developments on the horizon is the advancement of rapid DNA analysis, which researchers predict will soon allow for complete genetic profiles to be generated within minutes directly at crime scenes. This evolution builds upon decades of careful laboratory work, promising to dramatically reduce the time between evidence collection and suspect identification. In the peaceful realm of digital forensics, artificial intelligence systems are becoming increasingly adept at processing vast amounts of data. These systems, working quietly and efficiently, are being trained to recognize patterns in everything from surveillance footage to social media activity, helping investigators piece together complex cases with unprecedented precision. Quantum computing, still in its early stages, holds the promise of breaking through current technological barriers. Scientists envision these powerful systems analyzing evidence in ways that our current computers cannot, potentially revealing hidden connections in cold cases that have remained mysteries for decades. The soft whisper of progress can be heard in the development of new forensic techniques that focus on the microbiome, the unique community of microorganisms that exists on and around every person. This emerging field suggests that each individual's microbial signature could provide another layer of forensic evidence, as unique as a fingerprint but far more difficult to conceal. Nanoscience is gradually opening new doors in forensic investigation, with researchers developing microscopic sensors that can detect trace amounts of evidence that would have been invisible to previous generations of forensic scientists. These tiny technological marvels may soon be able to identify specific compounds, drugs, or explosives with unprecedented accuracy and speed. The gentle evolution of forensic science continues in the field of brain scanning and memory retrieval, where researchers are carefully exploring ways to more accurately assess witness testimony and suspect statements. While raising important ethical considerations, these developments may provide new tools for understanding human memory and its role in criminal investigations. Environmental forensics is emerging as an increasingly important field, as investigators develop new methods to trace environmental crimes and their impact on our world. These techniques may help us better understand and prosecute crimes against nature, from illegal logging to toxic waste disposal. As we look toward the future, we can see the steady integration of various forensic disciplines, creating a more holistic approach to investigation. The boundaries between different specialties are slowly dissolving, allowing for more comprehensive analysis of evidence and more accurate conclusions. The careful preservation of evidence continues to evolve, with new storage technologies ensuring that physical and digital evidence can be maintained indefinitely, allowing cold cases to be revisited as new analytical techniques become available. This patient approach to evidence preservation may help solve cases that have remained mysteries for generations. As our journey through the history of forensic science draws to a close, we can rest assured that the field continues to advance, building upon the foundation laid by countless dedicated professionals over the centuries. Each new development brings us closer to understanding the truth, while reminding us of the importance of careful, methodical scientific investigation in the pursuit of justice. As our journey through the remarkable history of forensic science draws to a close, let us pause to reflect on the flowing river of human ingenuity and discovery that has brought us to this moment. Like gentle waves lapping at the shore of time, each development we've explored has left its mark on the endless beach of human knowledge. From those first tentative steps in ancient civilizations, when our ancestors began to observe and document the subtle patterns of truth and deception, to the sophisticated DNA analysis of today, we've witnessed the gradual unfurling of understanding, like a flower slowly opening its petals to the morning sun. Each generation has added its own unique contribution to this tapestry of discovery, weaving together threads of observation, deduction, and scientific advancement. Think of how the early fingerprint pioneers, working by candlelight with simple magnifying glasses, laid the foundation for today's biometric databases. Their patient documentation of the unique patterns nature writes upon our fingertips continues to echo through time, their methodical work still speaking to us across the decades. Like rings in a tree trunk, each layer of discovery has built upon what came before, creating something both beautiful and profound. The development of forensic science mirrors the seasons of human progress, periods of quiet observation followed by bursts of innovation, like spring following winter. From the careful cataloging of poisons by Matthew Orfila to the groundbreaking DNA work of Alec Jeffreys, we've seen how individual insights can blossom into entire fields of study, spreading their branches to shelter new discoveries. Consider how the simple observation of blood patterns has evolved into sophisticated serological analysis, or how basic microscopy has transformed into powerful electron microscopes that reveal the finest details of trace evidence. Like a river starting as a small spring and growing as it flows downstream, gathering tributaries of knowledge, forensic science has expanded and deepened with each passing decade. The story of forensic science is, at its heart, a deeply human story. It speaks to our eternal quest for truth, our desire to protect the innocent and bring justice to the wronged. In every age, dedicated individuals have worked tirelessly to develop new tools and techniques, each advance building upon the patient work of those who came before. Their legacy flows through time like a gentle stream, nourishing new generations of scientists and investigators. As we've traced this journey from simple observation to complex DNA analysis, we've seen how human creativity and persistence can unlock the deepest mysteries. The development of chemical analysis, the revolution of digital forensics, the emergence of artificial intelligence. Each chapter in this story represents countless hours of careful study, brilliant insights, and dedicated service to truth and justice. Let us pause to appreciate the natural rhythm of scientific progress, the quiet periods of careful observation, the sudden breakthroughs that illuminate new paths, the patient refinement of techniques that follows. Like the cycles of nature itself, this pattern of discovery and development continues to unfold, each generation adding its own verse to this endless song of human achievement. In our modern world, as we stand at the threshold of new discoveries, we carry forward the accumulated wisdom of all those who came before. The fingerprint pioneers, the early toxicologists, the developers of blood analysis. Their work lives on in every modern crime laboratory, their insights continuing to light the way forward. Their dedication to truth and justice remains as relevant today as it was in their own time. As we look to the future, we can see how the patterns of the past continue to influence the present. The same careful attention to detail that guided early forensic practitioners now informs the development of artificial intelligence systems. The patient documentation of physical evidence that characterized the field's beginnings now extends into the virtual realm of digital forensics. Think of how each advancement we've explored has been like a star added to the constellation of forensic science, each one helping to illuminate the path forward. From the first recognition of unique fingerprint patterns to the latest developments in touch DNA analysis, each discovery has built upon what came before, creating an ever more complete picture of how we can understand and interpret the evidence left behind by human actions. As you rest and reflect on this journey through time, consider how the dedication of countless individuals has created this remarkable field of study. Their work continues to ripple through time, touching lives and serving justice in ways they could never have imagined. Like the gentle flow of a river that has carved its path through ancient stone, their contributions have shaped the landscape of modern forensic science. The story of forensic science reminds us that human knowledge grows not in great leaps, but in careful steps, each one building upon those that came before. Like the gradual changing of seasons or the slow growth of a mighty oak, progress comes through patience, persistence, and careful observation. Every technique we use today, every tool at our disposal, represents the accumulated wisdom of generations. As we conclude our journey, let us rest in the knowledge that this story continues to unfold. Even now, in laboratories and research centers around the world, dedicated scientists are adding new chapters to this remarkable narrative. Their work, like that of their predecessors, flows forward through time, contributing to the ever-growing river of human understanding. Let your mind drift peacefully with these thoughts, like leaves floating on a gentle stream. Consider how each discovery, each innovation we've explored, has contributed to the tapestry of human knowledge. Feel the connection to those countless individuals who, through their dedication and insight, have helped create the modern world of forensic science. As you settle into restful sleep, carry with you the awareness of how human ingenuity and persistence have illuminated the darkest mysteries, brought justice to the wronged, and continued to advance our understanding of the world around us. Let the peaceful flow of scientific progress carry you gently toward dreams, knowing that this remarkable journey continues, ever onward, like the eternal cycle of the seasons. Rest now, knowing that you are part of this ongoing story, this endless river of human discovery and understanding. Let the accumulated wisdom of generations past serve as a gentle lullaby, carrying you softly into peaceful slumber, where the mysteries of tomorrow await their own moment of discovery.